All right, so I guess we'll count down and start. It'd be fun if we all did our own individual intros.
All at the same time?
All at the same time.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Just piss everybody off. I mean, I could just count us down because I need the timestamp for editing purposes anyway. And then I guess we'll just see where it goes if that's
Cool.
what you guys want to do. All right. So, all right, here we go. Beginning in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of a podcast. The podcast of all podcasts. I mean, who we got? We got Brett, Myles, Jenny, Drew. Brett, I'm going to get myself off the X. You say hello first.
All right. What's going on, guys?
Hello.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's going on, guys?
That could not have gone any better.
What's going on, guys? What's up? Yeah.
Should we all kind of give a shout out to our podcast first to start it out?
Yeah, I think so. I probably
Yeah,
should have
sure.
given more directions.
All
So go for it, Brett.
All right. So this is Brett from Ballout. Myles, you want to say what's up too?
What's up, guys? This is Myles from Ballout as well.
Hi, this is Jenny. Oh, let me go? Okay.
Yeah. Ladies third. Fourth.
Thank you. This is Jenny from the Wod Pod, or Women of Dodgeball podcast.
Nice. And I'm Drew from the Drew and Crew podcast.
Awesome. And I'm Steve from the Dodgeball podcast. I guess depending on how you're listening to this, we're all going to launch this bad boy on Christmas. So if you're listening to this, Merry Christmas. Brett, why are we doing this? Was this your idea? You did this to
Whose
us?
idea?
I want to say it was mine, or I don't know if it was
Myles?
me. I know me and Brett were just talking, but I don't know who came up with it first.
It wasn't my idea.
We tend to have those ideas where we just kind of talk and then something happens out of it. In our chat we've had going on for the last year and a half, and we wanted to get everybody involved because we know we've had some growing pains. We talked about it in our last episode about where we started to where we're at now. And Steve, you are the Dodgeball pod father, so we wanted to bring you into this. And I know it's weird that we said this too, that we are the second oldest Dodgeball podcast, and we just started this year. So I know we don't have much on you guys, but we're the second vets, I guess. And we just want to share some struggles and talk some Dodgeball with more people.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, thanks.
I think it's a great idea, though, too, because we should all be helping each other out, too. So it's kind of cool to bring everybody together and kind of hype each other's pages up anyway, too. So it's a really great idea.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think the original idea came from, cause we already had Steve on our podcast, and me and Brett are already on Steve's podcast before. And we've talked about doing collaborative ideas before, and they were just like, why not bring everyone else in? Because
we've had Jenny on, too.
Fun. Yeah,
You had me.
I didn't forget Jenny.
Remember my episode.
I didn't forget Jenny. I'll just kind of lead up to the collaborative part. But yes.
Best to last. There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah, and when we had Steve on, we had talked about how, Steve, I think you said it best. Like we want to help each other out, but we kind of specialize in different things so that it's not the same repetitive stuff. We all have our own little segment of the Dodgeball community, so helping each other out. I'm not even gonna remember my quote now. Was in a high tide all boats rise, or something along those lines.
Oh,
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah,
A rising tide elevates all ships.
Yeah, one of those cool quotes that I'm not going to think of right now. But yeah, I mean, growing our community is, everybody's goal. So why not help out who's trying to do that?
For sure. That's one thing I learned, what it's like to work with somebody that doesn't want to help you. Ed Prentice from the NDL. Yeah, I guess Merry Christmas, everybody. But
here we go.
Yeah, let's just start with the negative right away. But in case anybody cares, the reason why I think I'd like to consider myself a decent person. But I've experienced
that's a bit far, Steve. What?
I said I'd like to consider myself. But I know what damage being selfish and greedy can cause the dodgeball community. So off the get-go, if there's anything I could do to help out in any capacity, I'm first of all honored to even be considered that. Might have to work on the nickname of Podfather though. That's I've had worse, but Podfather. That sounds I feel like
it's always the nicknames you don't want that stick.
That's actually really true. Like Hurricane.
Yeah.
Quick trivia factoid. Drew was actually the first guest of the Dodgeball podcast on the very first episode back in 2015.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh, really?
That was awesome.
Yep.
That turnaround though, it's awesome.
So it's yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, like you said earlier, we've all kind of been on each other's collective podcasts before, so I just had to throw out that factoid there. But Myles, I think you're the one that said that you guys had you discussed like some not hardship, but just some growing pains. Maybe we can go around the room and kind of capture
Brett
everyone's.
said that.
Yeah. So what was one of them?
Let's see. Well, so when it comes to podcasts, I think the hardship would probably fall more on Brett because I typically do more of the company stuff. Brett usually handles more like the audio podcasting kind of background stuff. So I'm gonna let Brett take over for that one.
I mean, we really talked about how going back and listening to some of our first episodes would just hurt. Just listening to the uncomfortableness of talking into a microphone, just trying to break in to where we are now. It would just be so hard to listen to. I like to think editing skill wise, driving conversation wise, and talking about things that people actually want to listen to instead of just me and Myles talking to each other. It helped us evolve to put out a few of those hard episodes and having to edit those and go back and like, all right, mental note, don't do this. Mental note, don't do that. And growing as the podcast has gone further.
Do you ever get tired of hearing?
Now you remind me all the stuff.
To caveat, do you guys ever get tired of hearing yourself? Like, because it almost
it's weird.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Like it's funny. Like Jenny, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, it is funny. Like when I was younger, I used to sing a lot and then record myself, and like even then I was like, oh, this sounds so strange. And then doing the podcast and doing it where I was doing like a 5-minute segment of me talking by myself and listening to, I was like, oh, this is so cringy.
Oh,
it's so weird.
Like I remember when we first started releasing episodes, I would get super excited to start listening to our episodes. I think I got like 3 episodes in, I just stopped listening to them. I'm like, I cannot.
Yeah,
it's awful. Like, no, thank you.
No, that's what I said too in our last episode. I said I listened to it while I edit it, and then I never listened to it again. I just leave it out there in podcast land. And just if somebody brings something up, I'm like, I don't remember. I could have said that. Sounds probably accurate, but I don't know.
Me and Jenny talked about it on our podcast, but I don't mind my voice, but when I listened back to like when I laugh, I was like, I have the stupidest laugh I've ever heard. Like, I need to change that immediately. But yeah, it's so funny like hearing yourself talk, because I mean this is a very unique thing that we're doing. Well, I guess it's not unique anymore, but it's cool to be able to do this. But yeah, you definitely take some notes personally because you're always critiquing yourself the most. So that was my big thing. I was like, man, my laugh is so stupid.
What's Jenny, what do you do that you've noticed that you are either annoyed with or just be like, oh gosh, is that me?
I don't. So one of my biggest things that I always struggled with is I don't know what you call it, but you know when people say like you say like, oh, I swear to drunk I'm not God.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sometimes my brain gets so excited that I'll say what's the main part of the sentence at the beginning, and then I'm like, oh no. So sometimes when I've listened back, and I'm just like, oh, I can't believe the entire time I was like pronouncing this word wrong. It's like what Benedict Cumberbatch that said penguins, like saying penguins wrong each time. Because I know there was actually one that reminded me of when I'd done the interview with you, Steve, And I think instead of capitalizing, I kept on saying captivating. And every time I like say the word now, I just cringe or
I
or
need to
listen to
find that
myself and I'm
now.
like, oh, I'm pronouncing words wrong all the time, and I don't even realize I'm doing it. Just my brain's like brain farting.
My favorite thing
Yeah.
now is that so Casey Bielik, who now plays with the Gamecocks, I got him a job with me, and whenever I slip up and say something dumb, the next day I either get a text that night that he listens to just a dumb quote I had, or the next day it's all I hear.
Dang.
Oh, that's awesome.
But that's not
Yeah.
motivation to be perfect.
His favorite right
Oh,
now
man.
is, I think that's math. I get to hear that like 4 times a day.
I remember
Yeah.
that one.
That's awesome.
Oh man, I remember that one. I was laughing pretty hard when you said that. That's dumb.
But mainly I go back and I take notes because it makes my job of editing so much easier. If I stop saying 45 times in 5 minutes, then I don't have to chop everything up. I can just listen and it's smooth, and it makes my life easier.
You actually cut out the ums.
I've tried my best. I just take that pause instead and
The tactical
try
pause.
not to say it.
Nice.
That's
Just
what
leave
I've
them out
started
when
doing
it's
now.
working.
Yeah, like I think my biggest issue is like not slowing down. Similar to like what Jenny you do, where you kind of like scramble your sentences up. For me, it's a little bit different. I'll lose track of what I'm saying. Cause it's not like I'm rambling. It's just I'm talking, or my brain's going so fast. I'm trying to think of the next sentence, but then I get to the end and then I don't know what next, and I'm like, well, now what? So I'm screwed with what's going on next. I'll usually just like hesitate and just try to come up with something else and just go on another rabbit hole, and they somehow loop it back, but it's very irritating.
Or
when
he'll
it
just
happens.
toss it over to me and be like, I forgot where I was going, so you go ahead and talk now.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's it. Yep, that's it.
So when you guys had
It's
me
like-
on, go ahead, Jenny.
Oh, see, we're talking to each other. I was gonna say that's like when I did my first group interview and was trying to organize when people were coming in. So like asking a question and then there'd be a pause and you're like, oh, Sam, you go first. And then you just go, oh, the power of editing. Just go, chick,
I've
cut
had
it
to do it
out,
a few times.
and no one knows.
To the East credit, when you guys like Frankie Janetto was really good at this, he would just do that like. If I can be next, I'm like, oh man, why can't everyone do that? Why can't I enforce that? It's brilliant. But
It's efficient.
Well, how do you guys all record? Steve, I know you usually do Zoom. Jenny, how do you guys record?
I do through Zoom too, and I'll
Okay.
do kind of a backup file of my own voice recording, and then I'll just do it through Zoom.
This
Drew,
is
what do
a
you do?
very good question because I was doing Zoom, but that was when I was teaching still. But I'm not teaching anymore because I'm traveling. So I've been trying to use my brother's teacher's login just so I can record in the infinite amount of time. But for some reason, it's not working. I guess it just works on his work computer. So that's why I really haven't come out with anything. I've been making the excuse as the holiday season. That's why I haven't come out with something in a couple of weeks. But it's really because of the Zoom login. But I'd like to hear from you guys. Like, do you all do Zoom or do you do something else? Because if you do something else, like I'm very frugal, so the less money. The better.
Yeah, we actually don't do Zoom, and we use it's Zencaster. Shout out Zencaster for all our episodes.
Awesome.
It's free. It's been when we first signed up it was like in January, and it was free if it was like 3 people max, and then once the pandemic hit, they said, all right, well, unlimited guests, unlimited time,
that's cool.
free. So
Awesome.
the cool thing about them is that it saves files on whatever computer you're using to record. So it would save individual files on each of our computers. So that way there's no Wi-Fi lag. So if it got choppy for a second, you would not notice that in our recordings. And then it'll upload all of it to my Google Drive. So it's all seamless. It's in 2 separate files. So it's really easy to edit. The only thing is it doesn't have video. So
Yeah.
when it's
And it's not mobile either. That's another.
yeah,
annoying
you have
thing.
to have a laptop. But
Mm.
when we started out and we were having guests, we had to kind of warn guests up front, be like, all right, we can't see each other. It's a 3-way conversation. So there's going to be awkward silences. there's going to be over talking. Don't worry about it. We'll edit it out. It'll be okay. So once in a while, you get people that kind of ramble to try to fill the silence, but say, all right, take a breath, slow down. It's all right. We're going to make it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that something that's hard though when you don't have the video, like trying to know when to come in, especially when you're having like a guest on? Do you ever have any troubles with that?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like it's like the kind of the same what we're doing now. Even though we can see each other, there's the instances of us talking over each other. Like there's a couple, so it's not like it's like every time someone's trying to say something, someone's talking over. It kind of like it comes and goes every once in a while.
Yeah, I think the only issue we run into is like in the last episode we recorded that comes out the following week. We were so intrigued at what our guest had to say. Like when him and Myles were talking, I was like writing notes and forgetting to talk because I just was so interested in listening to what they had to say. It's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to actually jump into this too and be part of this podcast.
Nice.
Like it was funny because like the first like I think 10 or 15 minutes, I didn't say a single word. I was just like, this dude is awesome. And then I'm like, oh shoot, hold up, say something. And then I kept like trying to like, okay, when he stops talking, I'm gonna say stuff, but he just kept going. I'm like, okay, hold up. When he's gonna stop, I'm gonna go. And then Brett would say something, I'm like, Brett, hold up, let me say something. And it was awful. But it was just really funny.
They are though, they've had a video like beta that's been supposedly out to a certain amount of people that we've been on a waiting list for, so we're holding out for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to answer your question, and plus anybody else is listening, because I know because of the pandemic, a lot of people are thinking about doing podcasts now. I know Dylan just launched his, right? Oh man,
Yeah,
I just saw the
podcast, right?
What was it?
Was it something like on his shoes or something? Like that's the last time I heard about it.
No, it's
But
he just
I
dropped
don't know.
Dylan?
Oh
Dylan
no.
Cruz.
I just saw that too. It's like pod. Oh man, it's like a hot take. or
Dylan
something.
Cruz?
Give me like
Yeah.
Dylan Cruz,
Yeah, from
Peace of Mind.
KTC.
Peace of Mind
Yeah.
podcast. So
Peace of mind. Yeah, that's it.
and
I
I've
think
had
they're
to,
using YouTube strictly too. I'm not sure if that's correct, but it seems like they're using like a lot of YouTube. How do you guys feel about that?
That's
tried
a
it.
Joe Rogan style. Just doing it live. Let it go.
I'm getting close with the streaming and throwing my face out there. As you guys can see, I think video is going to be a real thing from now on. So I did release the West Coast, not the raw version, but I just edited the intro and the outro. That's on YouTube now, so I'll be playing with that a little bit more and get more familiar. I just feel like that's the next step, but I don't know what Cruz's setup's gonna be. It looks really cool. He did talk about it, man, back in May when Justin guest hosted. So
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. Like, I remember him saying he wanted to do podcasts on shoes, or at least talk about shoes. That's all I was thinking he was doing a shoe podcast, but I don't know what he's doing now. But
Yeah,
it's good for him.
if it is a shoe podcast, I'll be so excited because he's got some sick shoes. I see him at tournaments. I go up and I'm like, oh, there's the Kyrie's. Oh yeah.
I started listening to the one he put out. It was the beginning of the month, and if they are only doing live, they have some cool pre-production stuff like a countdown and everything, and it looks like it's just the three of them at a table with like cameras behind them, and it's kind of a cool setup.
a
It
full
would
studio.
it'd be ideal if everybody like lived close, but I mean obviously with across the country guests it's hard to pull off.
Yeah.
What's can I shift the conversation real quick if you guys don't mind? Milestones. So I was realizing you guys posted a Ballout. You guys have been going steady for a year now. You hit that year.
Yeah, give or take a week or two. We don't really remember exact date, but yeah.
It was around this time
Yeah.
frame. What do you have any
Yeah.
other milestones you want to brag about or celebrate?
What's our most recent one? Was it the 2,000 downloads or
I think we're closing in on 3,000.
Nice.
yeah?
I mean we've
So
put out
go ahead.
over 50 episodes. We're closing in on 3,000. I don't remember, what did we say our countries listened to was? It was like 26 or 28.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going we've been international, but growing international. We released our Ballout line, so we got products now.
Mhm.
I guess that's really it for turn to
Just cruising
milestones.
along.
Pretty.
Yeah, just
Pretty dang good for
taking it step
a
by step.
year. What about you, Drew?
I want to say, first off, that's cool. So congratulations. I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
it's cool that how you guys are growing and coming out with a line and stuff. That's pretty impressive and pretty cool. And it just,
Thank you.
I know you guys are like, all right, we're going to push even harder next year too, just because of everything you've done in 1 year. So that's awesome. For me, me and Steve talked about it too, but first I want to say, I mean, I always say this on a lot of my podcasts, but Steve, another shout out again. Just thank you for everything. I always message you like the dumbest questions, but you never make fun of me. So I appreciate you. But mine's more of just a hobby more than anything. I love just kind of just like crap talking with, I'll try and stay PG on this, but just having my buddies on talking whatever. It's obviously gonna be heavily dodgeball, but like just whatever my interests are, either whether it be like MMA or football or just anything. So mine's just kind of just a hobby. If it blows up and gets big, that'd be awesome. But if it's just some of my close friends listening to it, it's cool too. So I'm definitely going to keep at it. But it's kind of where it's like, all right, whenever I get some free time, I'll get this person on, or I'll get that person on. So it's very like lackadaisical, but I do really enjoy it though.
Nice.
The milestones, none really right now, but it's fun seeing like people like my stuff. That's cool.
I was gonna say, man, like it took and I can go into this if you guys want, but it took 5 years for me to finally move forward on an idea. No, 2 years. So just putting something out there and throwing yourself out there and taking the risk and having that feedback of people that are not just your mom and dad listening to you, giving you feedback. That's huge, man. So you know, like you said, it's not lackadaisical, but a little sporadic given your schedule, but you're out there. People know your voice. People listen to you in their cars and at the gym and in their living rooms and whatnot. So just starting, man, is huge. What about you, Jenny? Have you had any milestones yet?
Oh, I don't
Wanna
know. I think it was a couple episodes ago I hit the 500 downloads, which I was like, oh my God, 500 people. Or like
That's awesome.
Multiple. And then I don't know. It's hard. I didn't actually, because I know when you talk about different countries, I was like, wait, you can look at that? And so I was just looking at that now. It says 7 countries. So I was like, yay.
Nice.
Jenny, sorry not to cut you off, but do you use Buzzsprout as well so you can track all that stuff?
Yeah, that's what I'm literally looking at right now.
Yep.
So I was like, wait, stats. And then it says more stats. And I was like, oh, why have I never noticed this before?
Yeah, like whenever we get that email, like I never checked the email up until like a couple months ago. And I was like, oh my God, it has so many stats on like the randomest things. It is great. So
yeah, cool. And that's something that, because I did kind of a bit what Steve does, where I did some upload episodes on Buzzsprout and then I was uploading some on SoundCloud. So I don't know what I think my total number of downloads is actually a lot higher than what I think it is, if I just go through. So that's kind of a good thing in my book. But it's been nice having people that I didn't think, not that I didn't think they would listen, but it's just surprising having some more like prominent players reach out to me and kind of be like, I really appreciate what you're doing. Because it's nice having a lot of women, especially, that have kind of come out being like, it's really nice to hear like a woman run podcast, especially about sport. And I actually had so when I was at university, I used to be part of like the sports committee part of the university, and I've had some people that are working for my university sports reach out to me and say like, oh, I remember you when you were like vice president of Dodgeball, and then now you're creating this podcast. And so I've actually have a lot of people in the UK listening from my university promoting it. So I was like, wow.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
But yeah, I was thinking of, I've had some people ask about merchandise. And I was like, oh, I don't quite know if I'm there yet, because obviously it's just me kind of doing this. I don't have any other help, but I was like, I might make some stickers. start out small.
Start somewhere.
So I've got that in the works, but that's about it right now.
I'm
only 14 episodes in, so
sign up for Sticker Mule. They'll send you all kinds of awesome deals, and you can get like what do we get, Myles? Like 50 stickers for like $6. Like
I think it was something like that.
They'll send you all kinds of deals, like tape deals, holographic deals, magnet deals. Like it feels like at least twice a week I'm getting an email from them that, oh, check out this stuff. You liked your stickers. Try this.
Yeah, because that was something that obviously the kind of daunting thing with some merchandise is that you have to put your own money in to then make a product to then get money out. And obviously, like a lot of people have been hit hard with pandemic. I was one. And so it's like, oh, trying to raise money to then help fund the stickers to pay to get that.
Actually got a roll of them right here.
Pay, so then I can make more merchandise.
No. Show her the nicer stickers, man. We got better.
Those are the ones that you have.
Oh, wait, did you send those?
I have the circles.
Stickers?
You have the cutouts.
Oh, I have the cutouts. Oh, that's all the way up there. I don't want to go up there and get those. But maybe after I'll show you after. But yeah, like that's probably the hardest thing about merchandise. Like Steve, you could probably attest to this too. Like when you first start out merchandising, you make no money. If anything, you're losing money before.
Oh,
no, I'm a millionaire
like
for
even
sure.
if you break even,
Do you guys not see my fancy green screen? Like, no, it's
that's high tech.
I mean, hey, that's a step above. So
this is what happens when you don't have kids.
You don't even break even for a while. So it takes.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like trying to figure out and being like, oh, I wish I had more money, just so I could be like, look at all these shirts. Please buy them.
Steve, I want to hear some of your milestones. You'll have some good ones.
Yeah. So I realized I was kind of going over some of the insights from SoundCloud with Sergio, he's a guest host at this point, or co-host, however you want to phrase it, with his international adventures, and just sharing them like, hey, these are the countries that hit when I dropped your episode. This is the new areas, and I started counting all the episodes, and we hit like 207. We hit 200 like 2 or 3 weeks ago, total, and I was like, Jesus, that's a lot of dodgeball conversations. And
yeah,
you guys made the joke of like, or Brett, I think you said you edit it, send it out there, and it's off to the interwebs. But like I joke about being this old man with his dog sipping on PBR on a rocking chair outside the porch listening to this stuff, and so I filled myself with like countless hours of good memories and good conversations, and that was more like a sentimental one for me, especially because, ironically enough, the Facebook memories picture came up around the same time where I was sitting at that bar. I think I've referenced it in a few episodes where we played this all pinch tournament. It was me and Team Evil, my buddies, and me and Fullerton were talking. And I just remember hearing how we would talk and be like, there's only a specific amount of people that would listen to this and want to hear it. And that's like, man, I should do a podcast at some point. Then fast forward 2 years later, we start it, and then fast forward some more time, and it's kind of come full circle. So that was more of a sentimental milestone for me. Just like, man, I didn't even I just figured like we're probably somewhere in like the upper 90s, hundreds, not 200. So that was definitely one. The other one was looking at the over the course of 12 months where our plays were, and this chart, you could see we were starting to trend upwards because we're getting ready for season, the USA Dodgeball season to start. And so in April we had our highest point, and then that's when COVID hit. But then you see like the place to come back up and stay stable. And so to attest to what, Jeremy Bizzle had said was like, hey, you're helping us keep dodgeball fresh in mind despite the shutdown and despite dodgeball not happening. People are still talking about it. So that's again, it's not really a quantifiable one. It's more qualitative. That's where I tend to measure success. But that was cool seeing that. That's a couple. I mean, there's some more, but I want to divert to you guys now.
Well,
I'm talking an awful lot.
Steve, I like that you brought that up because we were seeing, steady growth up until the shutdown.
Yeah.
And it took a hard dip. And me and Myles talked about it. We're like, man, are we just not interesting anymore? Are we not cool? Like, people think we're annoying. What's going on? And then, my thought was, oh, people aren't driving to and from work. So when I know I listen to all my podcasts, driving. So without that drive time, podcast fell off. And I would reach out to the Gamecocks in our group chat and just be like, hey, just curious, when do you guys do a lot of your podcast listening? Be like, oh, sometimes I do it when I'm doing yard work, or if I'm out in the garage trying to get in a quick workout, or whatever the scenario is. It's just not as frequent as it is when, you're going places and you going, even at work, you know, if they have something going in the background, it's a podcast. So
Yeah.
being able to see that, you know, kind of rebound, that people are like, man, I miss dodgeball, and starting to tune back in was really encouraging.
Yeah.
I think what's that, Myles?
Go ahead.
No, I was
go
gonna
ahead,
say,
Steve.
that's a good point. Because the commute's gone, but for me, I thought it was just we had so much excitement for this coming season, and then with the shutdown, it was just such a punch in the gut. And then you had excuse me, everything else that followed suit. A lot of just bad stuff from this year. But you know, you see members of the community such as you guys, Jenny, Drew, Tori, Markel, Chris De Jesus, all of you guys, like, just still posting some kind of dodgeball content to just keep it, you know, hey, don't forget, this is still waiting for us when things get back to normal. That's been really awesome to see. But I am choking on water. I'm not crying. So
I'm not crying. You're crying.
Yeah, I cried my eyes out during Mandalorian. I'm good for like the rest of the.
I totally did that too.
Yep.
That was so good.
No spoilers.
I'm
I
probably
guess.
the only one that hasn't watched the show yet. Don't judge
Bro,
me.
you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it.
I'm
Drew,
very-
I'm judging.
I'm one of those weirdos that don't watch like Game of Thrones. I haven't watched like Dexter. I haven't
Alright,
watched
eject
any
button.
of like what's the other one with the dude from Malcolm in the Middle? What's that one?
Oh,
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah, Breaking Bad. I haven't seen that. People are like, dude, you're a weirdo. I was like, nah, I just watch weird stuff.
No, but I agree. I haven't seen most of those shows either. But like Mandalorian, definitely one of them you gotta watch.
Yeah.
I pulled you in.
Well, my girlfriend was watching it today because I was telling you guys earlier I was pretty hungover, so I was like sleeping on the couch while she was watching it. So I was like watching bits and pieces, and I was like, "This is actually pretty sweet." But then I passed out.
I talk to people about it that are very into Star Wars, and I'm not as much at all. So I have a lot of opinions that they just throw out and say are invalid because I don't know any of the backstory.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's the
enjoyed
best
like
part.
the original ones I loved, and then like the newer movies came out, and I was like, I kind of like fell out of love with it, and then I just kind of completely like put it to the wayside. But then when Mandalorian came out, I would watch like a couple episodes like today, and I was like, this is actually pretty good. Like it could draw me back in almost. So
Yeah, pull me back in. It rekindled my love
Yeah.
for Star Wars.
Steve, to bring it back in here, I was curious, how do you keep track of your stats? Because the way Buzzsprout does it is you upload it right to Buzzsprout, and then it disperses it to all of, you know, the Apple, the Spotify, the Google, all of those little outlets, and it kind of keeps track of all of it in one spot for you. So are you looking at different places, or do you kind of just use one as your guide?
So I mostly use SoundCloud, and I have thought about moving to other hosts that will distribute it. But I think I've been with SoundCloud so long, I don't want to lose previous analytics, I guess. So my primary is just SoundCloud. I did look at Spotify. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot we exist elsewhere. Spotify, iTunes. Does Buzzsprout pool like another RSS feed, or how's that work? Like,
So when you upload it, I guess I'm not very tech savvy, so this is what I understand of it, is that it takes one RSS feed and distributes it to the different hosting sites. So when you look at the breakdown of it, it shows you like, this is how many downloads you had on Apple, this is how many downloads you had on Spotify, on Stitcher, on Google Podcasts. So it gives you that full breakdown.
gotcha.
Yeah, it even breaks it down as far as like, this is how many people listen to it on their iPhone or on an
Yeah, I was
Android.
just looking at that.
Yeah.
You got me looking at stats now.
It's super interesting just because you never know. I had somebody listen to it like on Facebook, and I don't know how they were able to do that, but
Yeah.
apparently it works out. So however you're listening to it, thank you.
That's pretty cool. Wonder who that
I'm
would
pretty sure
be.
there's like a TV one too. I was confused on that. I'm like, how you watch it or listen to a podcast on a TV? I mean, you could do it, but it's weird. At least that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll have to look into that because, like I said, the original RSS feed goes to SoundCloud, and I don't want to mess with that, especially since I've been with it for 5 years and I have this weird thing with loyalty. I guess I just like, I don't want to leave you guys. You guys were there for me since day one. But I kind of use just SoundCloud as a gauge. They used to have this app called Pulse where it just fed you just the insights, but for some reason they decided to just bring it back to just SoundCloud. So,
so Steve, I can show you. This is like, let's try to hone it.
We're not gonna be able to see
You might
that,
have to
man.
turn down your
Right.
screen brightness.
All right, fine.
Or you could do share screen. It's probably easier that way.
Is that
Yeah, you can
can
see
you
a
see
little
that?
bit now.
All right, so that's like a breakdown of all the countries we listen to, and it even shows like how many downloads per country. So,
nice.
like in the United States, we have 2,123. In Canada, 307. In New Zealand, we have 94. Like, so it goes down even to if there's like one download, like 4 in Denmark. So it's really cool, the stats. Sometimes I just get all caught up and I'm like, oh man, who's listening in Denmark? How do I reach out to them?
What's the most random country that's listened to you?
So you just track them down. That's low key stalker, but worth it.
Well,
What,
that's
You're like, who is this one person in Ireland?
Kind of how it worked with Australia. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
somebody, please, if you're listening to us over there, reach out to us, please.
so I
Yeah,
got
they did.
Yeah, it only took 4 episodes of saying it, but they finally did.
So I got one dude in Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan.
Thank you. I was like, I don't.
You're
know.
welcome.
Didn't know that was a country.
Wait, that's the correct pronunciation.
That
Yeah.
ain't real.
Oh,
I mean, it's enough for me.
No, that's actually how you say it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can.
I'm used to
Where
so
is
many
that
years
voice?
of watching Eurovision that I'm like, Azerbaijan.
No. You guys can see the.
oh, that's a
the
country. I thought you were
flag.
talking about someone's name. That was very.
Oh my
good.
god.
Good
Alright.
to know.
That'd be a cool name though.
I'm putting my analytics
I mean,
down.
no one would get it right, but yeah.
Yeah.
Steve, what are the next big projects you have coming up? You're getting ready to end a season here? I know that, but what do you have next in the works?
So was playing with Stream, and I think I figured enough of it to have what I like, which is basically interviews will be live streamed unless the guest wants to keep it private. So there'll just be more video incorporation. I would like to still get more guest hosts because I am deploying in April, and so I've got a little bit of an exit strategy I need to work on. So probably less of me, more of new voices chiming in. That way, when I leave, it's sustained. But it really just depends on what the next couple months bring. I'm gonna be very, very busy personally, so I'm gonna enjoy this break and then hop on for, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 episodes and then pass it off. And with I was gonna say with Ball Estate, that's really gonna depend on if we're playing Dodgeball again. Because one thing, if you guys haven't picked up on, I've been really like just, hey, we're gonna just push pause and kind of hang out in the background.
Yeah.
People got way more going on right now than not only being able to not play Dodgeball, but also maybe they don't need a pair of knee pads or some of the items that we're trying to roll out with. So to answer your question, yeah, just sustainment. It's gonna be my biggest thing. It's gonna be hard to walk away from this, and not that I don't trust people, but it's like I gotta get to this point where, and I figured
It's your
this was,
baby.
well, it's
Yeah.
that, but it's also when I started it, I knew it was not going to be forever. So, but I didn't want it to go down if I left for whatever reason. That's just something I've been used to being in the military. It's like, well, I don't want to start something and then just because I'm gone, it goes to crap. So I got to think about how to sustain it while I'm gone, so I can come back and it's still there, or maybe somebody makes it better than when I left it. So, kind of just finding an error, for lack of better words.
That's funny because I've actually been thinking about that a lot lately too. Because I think, what happens when I turn like 50 and I'm still doing this podcast and I haven't actually played in like 10 years? Is this going to still be going, or is this going to be something that just stops? And I would like to see it keep going because, all of us hope that the sport keeps growing and that there is, these outlets for the sport. So now, not that it's like anything that's time sensitive, but it's just something that has been on my mind lately.
So if you want to go
Because
dark,
if it makes it 25 years, I think we'll be pretty good.
yeah,
at
if
that
we have
point.
we'll go back
That's very
to
true.
that fantasy of the Dodgeball stadium that you guys had talked
Yeah,
about.
put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at I mean, if because I've been around for a very long time, so I've seen a lot of promising. I don't want to say organizations, but I've seen a lot of promising things up here on the dodgeball scene, and I've seen them fade away when someone gets married or has a kid. And this could be leagues, this could be tournaments. I just saw Rob Hometown Immel's gym that had a world record get shut down because it's going to make space for a factory or something that's not as cool. So legacy and longevity is a big deal for me. So you look at Tyler Greer's Dodgeball Tribune, say what you will about some of the comment threads, but like I missed that. And it was a good production. People cared about it. Like same thing with Colin Dowling. Like he had the Beast Coast Chronicles going on.
Yep.
And like that's, I mean, for me, it's like, yeah, just gotta keep it going. So
we got to get Dodgeball back first.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like to even like make a podcast, I think you have to be like obsessed with the thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
I'm a little obsessed.
like there's a lot of people that I mentioned to and they were like, oh, to be honest, I haven't even thought about Dodgeball like since this whole thing's been going on, and I've kind of been like, oh, all I've been thinking about is
like, how dare you? Yeah.
I'm like, I'm still doing like exercising, training for dodgeball, and like looking through, and I'm still like, okay, yeah, we can do this, try to make jerseys and stuff, because it'll come back. But yeah, my brain's like always thinking about it, so I'm like, I think I'll still do the podcast for a while.
What do you have next, Jenny?
So I've got an episode that's releasing on Christmas Eve that will be kind of my season ender. Just because I realized that my December and like January schedule are a lot busier, and there was some times where I had to like skip an episode for a week and kind of bring it the following week. But when we come back, it'll be, I have like a lot of ideas and a huge like mind map on one of my walls that's kind of written all these like potential episodes. And then it will be more like, I want to bring back the bull debate. So I'm going to do like a series of like interviewing people that are like 8.5 for lifers and like no sting cloth and that. And then it's kind of like what Steve was doing with the different regions. And then you have like a nationals where you're doing like the theory thing. So talking kind of that with the bulls, and then it's do more conversational topics and things like talk about different rule sets and why the WDA rules suck. And then but yeah, things like that. I'm just looking forward to hopefully, like I don't think it's going to happen at the beginning of the year next year or anything, but hopefully at some point we get Dodgeball next year. So it would be nice getting more content so like I could talk about women's dodgeball, not just something that's happened from like 2019, like being able to talk about it more like in depth and as it goes on sort of thing. But yeah, just more season 2 returning end of January.
Love it.
What about you, Drew?
Thanks.
So I have 3 episodes coming up that I want to film pretty shortly. 2 of them involve, so a big thing I want to do though is traveling, since so I think you guys all know, but I travel with my girlfriend now. She's a travel nurse, so every 3 months we're in a different state, and so my life's like completely different now, but it's really cool to like, now we have like an extra thing to talk about. So a lot of my podcasts are gonna be travel. We just went to Disney with John Iorio and his wife. A lot of people don't know who he is, but he was on our team when we won UDC in 2015. So he was the guy that Dave Benedetto was calling John Belushi. If you guys remember that?
I remember that.
But so we're gonna have like a recap on like Disney, what's the best parks. We're gonna rate like the best drinks in each parks and like the best rides and stuff. So it'll be pretty fun. And then we just went to Denver with a couple of the Ascension guys and their girlfriends. So we're gonna kind of do like a Denver recap, like where to go, like if you want to go skiing and stuff like that. And then when I was in Montana, I met up with this physical therapist would go to the bar all the time. So where I was in Montana, it was a very small town. So it was like, what do you do for fun? You go drink and then you gamble in the bar pretty much. So that's
nice.
That's what they do. So I befriended this physical therapist who loves football, so we're gonna talk football. But then I'm gonna post in Dodgeball family like, hey, I have this guy on. We're gonna talk about injuries, how to rehab, and things like that, and we'll see like what response we get from that, just to be more interactive with the Dodgeball community too. But then kind of talk to him about it and get his like professional opinion. But those are the three that I know for a fact I'm doing, and then after that, it's just putting out more content for this upcoming year. Because this first year was fun, and I really enjoyed it. But now I'm like, I need to put out more. So that's my goal for 2021 is just to put out more content.
Nice. Yeah, you got people hooked now, so you done did it, Drew. There's no backing
out.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Mine's more like laid back, but it's so much fun though. And it's kind of like so when you play dodgeball, like I don't know how you guys feel, but like for me, getting to the top, everybody wants to get to the top, but like I had like a selfish mindset almost where I was like, all right, I want our team to be recognized. I want our team to be recognized. And like after 10 years of playing, we're recognized now, but even though we're kind of on our way out. But now for me, my whole mindset's kind of changed. Like I want to not be selfish anymore. So like having all these new players or people I don't really talk to come on my podcast and like really get to know them instead of like focusing on myself. I want to focus on other people. And it's kind of cool where we were talking about where's the podcast going to lead. And like what Brett was saying, like, and when I'm 50, like, am I going to still be doing this? It's kind of like, now it's like, all right, well, I'm getting older now. I mean, I'm 31, so I should be in my prime, but your boy's getting thick. So I feel like I'm not on my way out, but I'm not at my prime anymore. So now it's kind of cool to be like, okay, let's talk to these new up and coming kids, people we don't typically talk to normally, kind of giving them the spotlight. And then who knows, when we retire from dodgeball, they could kind of maybe take over the podcast or who knows what happens. But my whole mentality now is to just not be as selfish. Like I kind of want to get back to the game because it's given me so much. And it sounds corny to say, but like if you look back, it's like, well, I never would have traveled. I would have never met all you guys who I consider friends. So it's like there's so much it's given me that I want to give back. Maybe selfish of me not to give back. So
I totally agree with that.
Yep.
Even like in college, where I would have never seen as many college campuses as I did if I wasn't traveling for dodgeball, and experiencing all of those nationals, even just going to Grand Valley, which is an hour and a half away from Central, meeting people on that campus that I'm still very close with now, even people that even retired from dodgeball that I'm very close with. It really has given me a lot, and I, like you said, I would love to give as much as I can back to the game.
Yeah.
Not me. I don't want to give him anything. F dodgeball. I've received nothing from
You've already donated half your life.
Just me. Yeah.
No,
what about you and Brett and Myles? What about you guys?
What was the question? I forgot what the question was.
What we have next.
Yeah, what you have next. Like what's your for the future?
This future. I think it really just comes down for us is like, so like we talked about the merchandise and like, so for me is grow the merchandise side and like just kind of figure out the company portion of it. But the thing is like kind of like what we talked about before, like during the April when everything kind of just like stopped, we initially stopped, like eventually, like we started with like the bands we released, like I think right before COVID like really took a dump, and we were really excited about that. Then the COVID happened, everything locked down, and then we were like on hold for about 6-7 months. And we recently decided to start everything back up with like, okay, we know there's no dodgeball, but we know dodgeball will be coming back soon. We know the 5 vaccines coming up, so we figured like start getting people excited about dodgeball again by releasing some products, stuff that people will want, at least products that like even if you can't use it for dodgeball, you can still use it in your home life. You do home workouts, or if you do if you're still going to the gym, stuff like that. So we wanted to kind of figure out a way to kind of keep people motivated, like staying strong during COVID despite the situation that we're all in. So I think for us, it's just like keeping the momentum we've generated now, especially with like, I think the last 2 months have probably been our most productive in terms of episodes, because we're not just like pulling episodes out of our butt now. Yeah, because like especially like when like we said like when March hit and like we had a whole list of like episodes we were gonna do, and then we ran out very quickly because we were planning on like doing like recaps like here and there, and then like kind of spreading out the episodes we had. But because COVID hit, there's no dodgeball, there's nothing to talk about but the episodes we had, so we ran out of episodes very quickly. So now that we kind of got like a little bit more momentum going, so we're gonna try to keep that momentum up, get some more guests on. I think that's really all we haven't really talked about like what the next few months will look like yet.
I think the only other real thing we want to focus on is getting out more content on like social media and really growing our Instagram and our YouTube and being able to post different videos of like if it's instructional for workouts or if it's, you know, walking through proper throw technique, just some kind of video base where people can tune in and, you know, search something that they want to learn a little bit better. And I think that's really going to be our next avenue. We were talking to Lauren, that's her name. She was talking about the best of dodgeball.
Oh yeah,
and
Lauren,
how they had like their TikTok had like 4 million views on one video, and
Jeez.
that's 4 million people seeing dodgeball. So really focusing on building those platforms up is going to be a big focus for us in 2021.
That's awesome. That's always been a huge like just what not what WTF, but just like, so for example, the infamous Vince Marchbanks clip where he does his behind the back throw and hits Tanya Kaiser, like so many thousands of people have seen that. It's been on YouTube Video Reacts. It's been on, I think, a show on MTV. It's like, how come that doesn't equal more dodgeball players? Like, what's
Right.
the missing link here? And I forgot, I think Edgar Fox suggested or out of a conversation we talked about, maybe I would never do this because I just couldn't. I'm too old, but like a TikTok that just shows quick clips.
Yeah,
We talked
If
about
you can,
that.
yeah, if you guys can connect with
we
that
talked about
generation,
it, and
who wants to take that
like
hit? Though?
I don't want to do it. Yeah, that's the hard part. Like I know I don't like. I probably do it, but I'm not like entertaining enough for that. Like in person, I'm like I think I'm entertaining, but when it comes to like planning things out, like a TikTok, I don't have that type of skill set.
Yeah, I don't know anything about TikToks either, but what Steve just said would actually be cool if you just. I mean, I could be talking out of my butt right now because I have no clue about TikToks. I've never downloaded it or anything. I've seen it, but like just have a page of like short, awesome clips of dodgeball, and that could maybe build up some interest on a different social media platform too. Maybe I'll do it, but we'll see. I don't know how to use that thing.
Jenny, you familiar with TikTok at all? Jenny, do you know how TikTok works?
I've never actually
Are you the hip
used
one?
it. I've done
Yeah, he's a
like
cool
when
kid.
so Matt Levine came and like stayed with us for a little bit, and the entire time he was like, "Oh, I was up late." And I was like, "Why were you up late?" He's like, "Just watching TikTok."
There you
Just
go.
watching
It's
TikTok.
Matt. The future is
And
Matt.
then and then I was like, "How does the TikTok work? Like, how does it work?" But yeah, I think that's cool, especially now when something that's a little clip. Basically, TikTok's what Vine was, right? A couple of years ago. So
But
I'm
like
seeing.
longer. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can see people are doing like, or how to, or like follow me. I know on Instagram, there's a lot of people that are doing like the Instagram TV snippets and stuff like that. So I was like, oh yeah, I need to probably up my social media, which is something that's like mentally hard for me because I was into it a lot when I was like a teenager, posting about all of my feelings. And then getting older was like posting less and less. And then now that I'm trying to do multiple, I'm like, oh, there's so much media content, like having to deal with it. But yeah, that's something that I was like, oh, I think it'd be cool to do stuff of like video me also recording, and then doing stuff that's like the insight into like behind the workings of like the podcast, so you get more of a personal touch, not really just listening to people's voices and not actually seeing what's going on. But yeah, I would get into TikTok more, but I've just heard stuff about it that's bad.
We need
So I'm scared of it.
we need Gage, Elijah, and Matt Levine to get on it
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just have Matt do all my TikToks.
Yeah.
Here's all of your open invitation. To
Guys, make TikTok
hit all
happen.
of us up.
Yeah.
Yeah, run our pages for us, please.
Hey, that's funny that you bring that up though, because that was one thing that we focused on was trying to get that personal touch. So when we were first firing up, me and Myles were like, well, should we record a couple, edit them up and see what happens? It's like, no, let's make the first couple rocky and have it feel like, our listeners are going through these growing pains with us, so that, they look back and it's like, oh yeah, I remember when, Myles' microphone wasn't working good. Now you guys knocked it out of the park. Like, you guys are finally getting it together, and editing's a lot better now, and so it makes you feel like that much more attached to it. So that conversation was something we had in the beginning of it that we were hoping would get people to latch on a little bit more.
Yeah, I remember, I think you guys had posted a photo of like your setups, and it was like you, I think, in your living room, and you're sitting on like a kiddie chair, or like using like a kid's chair to hold your microphone. So I think people would find it interesting as to like what, like I was like, oh, it'd be cool to show, because I have like a little pod room that I usually am not in tonight, but so like kind of a setup of what it looks like, and then Alfred and I have been talking about that. Oh, if we get a place, I want to make like a proper room, and because obviously I'd done architectural design, so I was like, okay, I need to get some acoustic panels set up. Oh, I could create this artwork with the acoustic panels and like make like a proper, like a pod loft sort of thing. But it was just funny that I was talking to someone, they're like, what's that? And they're like, oh, I put up this like a special acoustic like blanket because you could hear something from the fan in the other room, so I was trying to block it out. And they're like, what's these little things? I'm like, well, times are hard, so I got some freebies of acoustic panels and I just kind of gerrymandered them together.
I think I've had acoustic panels in my Amazon cart for like 4 months now.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I have them sitting in my office, just chilling there. I don't think I need them. That's why they're just hanging out. It's funny because I'm 37, but in my parents' eyes, I'm like 20, and so they were super excited about the house I just bought, and I'm just gonna admit this right now. Like, I wanted at least 3 bedrooms because one bedroom is just gonna be a recording studio because I'm just so lazy. I don't want to put build this up and take it down. And my mom came in. I'm showing her the tour, and she's like, "No guest room for your mother." I'm like, "Sorry, Mom." And I hadn't shown her the studio yet, and I was like, "Here's what would have been the guest room." And I'm like, "This is why you don't have grandkids, Mom. Sorry." But so I totally hear you, Jenny, about trying to focus on the acoustics. What really matters, like priorities when you have your own space. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's what we did too. We bought a house that was 3 bedrooms, but one of them had to be an office.
You're just sizing like which one is going to be the office.
We ended up just building another bedroom in the basement.
Nice.
And transforming the one I'm in now into an office, which actually worked out with the kids having remote school and stuff like that. So it wasn't only podcasting, but it was heavily influenced by podcasting
as the main driver. Nice.
But I can't wait to move out of my room in my parents' house to like an apartment, so I have like the space to podcast. Cause right now, for like the first 9 months of our podcast, I was doing it on the nightstand, and I had an office chair, but you can't put your legs underneath the nightstand, so I'm just like hovering over this nightstand. I'm like, okay, and like if I had to sit back, I would like say stuff, but I'll be like back here, and you can't hear anything, and I'm like, oh great, I forgot I have to lean forward to talk.
That explains why you come in and out sometimes in the earlier ones, I think. Okay.
Yep, it was off. I would just like lean back, listening because I forget my headphones were on, and then like I would just talk, and then I'm like, right, I said stuff. You guys didn't hear a single word of that, and then I would just have to lean all the way forward because I could never get comfortable. Because leaning over that nightstand like hurt my back. I'm like, okay, this is uncomfortable, so I'm gonna get comfortable, and then like I would lean over, and I'm like, okay, cool, and then the microphone's like by my feet, and I'm like, great, start over.
My favorite is when I catch myself doing it, when we're talking about technical stuff like working out or something, and I'm back here doing this like to myself and nobody's even in the room, but I'm trying to communicate it to Myles, who can't even see me. I'm like, oh man, I'm acting it out for nobody, and I'm far away from my mic, so you can't hear it. Let me try again.
You're doing it for yourself, Brett, and that's all that matters.
Just get into character.
Yeah, exactly. It helps me explain it.
Yeah, I've done it before where I was like, because there was a little bit, obviously when you're saying like struggling, like when you're doing your first couple episodes, I was really struggling to try and get the correct quality of sound. So there were some episodes where I was editing it, and as I was editing it, I was just like so upset with myself because I'm like, I'm a perfectionist, it needs to sound perfect. And you're like, oh, what's this background noise? And then I realized it's me. And then when I was like, oh, I could just mute myself, and then you won't be able to hear the background noise. But then it was the whole, I need to remember to unmute myself.
It's an extra step.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, if you
conversation.
listen to some of the like original recordings, you hear where it's every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Where were we?
That reminds me, like I remember, I think it was like the first 2 months. Like, remember when my hearing aids broke, Brett, and I had to like, and my headphones broke and my hearing aids broke it on top of that. So I remember I had to use my parents' computer, and I turned the computer all the way up, and I'm just sitting there next to the computer, just like listening to the speaker, and I'm like, I'm barely getting any audio. So there'd be times where I wouldn't say anything. So I'm like, I have no idea what's going on.
I remember you said that. You're like, my head is against the laptop right now, and I'm gonna need you to talk a little louder.
It was a rough like 2 weeks before I got those headphones back. I'm like, oh my god, it's terrible.
I got a question for you guys. So when you have a guest on your podcast, do you guys give them like a breakdown of what's going to happen, or do you prep them at all, or do you just say show up at this time and we're going to do this thing?
Sure, you go first.
Steve, you go first.
Go ahead, Steve.
Drew's the only one that
face is in
didn't.
front.
Dang it. It depends on the person. Generally, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of my last interview. With Tina, we had been talking about it for a while. Obviously, I know her in person, so that was easy. But I did send her a Google Doc of the questions. Brett, I think I did this with you, maybe.
Yeah,
Just as-
that was a little bit of a culture shock for me, where it was like all listed out, and I was like, oh, okay, people do this.
Yeah. So I'll reach out to them like, hey, wanted to have you on this time potentially. Usually have episodes like a couple weeks planned out. If somebody reaches out to me asking to be on the podcast, I'll front load them because I have like this like wish list that I have that I'm just gonna check off, but that's based on me. So usually when people reach out, they're way less. I don't want to say they're less nervous, but the doc helps. I'll shoot some questions like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to ask you about this. I say we pick a good time. For me, I've realized my best times are Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That way, if it's a recap, I can launch it on Wednesday. If it's an interview, I'll launch it on Friday. I think the biggest thing is when I talk to them, just talk offline for a little bit. Be like, hey, is there anything you don't want to cover? Is there anything that, if the conversation goes this one way, we can take it back? And just reassure them, like, if you say something where, first of all, if you cuss, I can bleep it out, so don't worry. If you find yourself in the middle of a question, you don't know how to answer it, we can just call cut and time out, and we can redo it. And I would almost say like 10 out of 10 times, everyone says, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought. And it's like, yeah, of course, because we're talking about dodgeball. Like it's like the easiest thing in the world for us to talk about. So short of the Google Doc and just picking a time, that's usually the hardest part, especially dealing with different time zones. I have no idea how Sergio pulls this off with the international scene.
Yeah.
It took me, I think, 3 or 4 times to get Henry Skinner on from the UK. A lot of misses there, but
Babe.
What's that?
I said he's Babe. We played at university together.
Yeah, it's like, okay, if I'm up at 3, there'll be 8 a.m. for you. I think I can make that happen. I'll just drink a lot of coffee and. But the Google Doc helps a lot. Yeah, long-winded answer there for you.
What about you guys, Drew?
Yeah, I'll always like be like, hey, I'm going to ask you these questions. Are you okay with it? Because like my thing too is, especially in this time, like I don't want to say something that might offend like someone, even if it's like it's always gonna be accidental. But like, say if I ask them something, they're like, oh, I'm not comfortable asking that question or whatever. So I always like send them my questions beforehand. And then also too, a lot like when I was younger in the dodgeball scene, I was single, so like I'd have a lot of stories with like a lot of the guy or girl dodgeballers where it was like, hey, do you want to talk about this in front of everybody? It's just like, if it was like a crazy party time, it's like, yeah, I'm down to talk to it. Or they'll like respond back and they'll be like, hey, nah, let's not say that publicly. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I always do that. Just me personally, I'm like, okay, because I was kind of crazy back in the day, but I'm a grown up now, so I've mellowed out a lot. So, but I'll always like send them the questions though too, just so they're prepared though too. So I'm not surprising anybody with something. So I think it's a great idea. And I think Steve, I think you told me to. I think you were one of the first people to be like, hey, send me a question. Or it might have even been like Triple in one of my first episodes, being like, hey, what are we going over? Like, I don't even know what we're talking about. So I was like, oh, I'll send you some questions or whatever. But yeah, I'll always do that.
What about you, Jenny?
Yeah, I'm definitely a preparer. So like even before this, I wrote my notes. I'm like, okay, remember to say this stuff. But yeah, I kind of took it from like what Steve, when we had done our interview before, and I saw that he'd sent like a Google Doc, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on in my brain that I need to get down, else I'll like not say stuff. So I'll kind of do an outline, and it will be more like bullet points, and it'll be some questions, and then so majority of my episodes are actually already written out, and then I'll send it to, like, if I'm having a conversation with someone, like with some of the NCDA girls, for example, I sent it to them and I was like, is there any stuff that you want to talk about in particular? And then they'll add into the group, like into the Google Doc. And then there's also stuff where they're like, please do not mention this. I have no interest in talking about this. I'm like, okay, just delete. We will not talk about this. And then it'll be like, so it's more trying to make more of a conversation. So it's like we're working on it together, sort of thing. So that's how I kind of go about it. So everyone that I've kind of featured on the podcast is within like a week or so in advance has already seen the like outline and tried to work on it. But yeah, I'm always prepared.
You guys are way more structured than us.
That's true. What do you guys do?
I mean, we did start off like kind of what you guys did, and then like I think that lasted like what, 2 episodes max, and then we're like, this doesn't work for us. Like we don't like just structuring it out, and we just kind of, I don't want to say free ball it, but that's basically what we do.
And I think it works out for us because the way we structure our topics, it's more of a broad overview, and then we find rabbit holes. And I guess we kind of just hope and pray that, you know, people find the same things that we find interesting actually interesting, because, you know, we'll pull on a thread and we'll go really hard after it for a little while, and then we're like, all right, maybe we should, you know, bring this around full circle, or I hope that was interesting for everybody, but we're here now.
Yeah. Like I remember, Steve, when you were on our podcast, you were very, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but you were just like kind of thrown off because we didn't ask you any questions like beforehand, because we just told you to show up, and then you were just like, I'm waiting for something, but you don't know what it was.
Yeah, no, that was for some reason I was expecting like an idea, just because I don't particularly find myself that interesting. So when I told you like I had to take off the podcast host hat and just like kind of just sit there and be like, all right, let's see where this goes. It's funny because when I listened to it, I was like, oh my god, telling stories, like you guys asked me like where Ball State came from, and I went deep, but I also skipped so many things, and I was like, I hope somebody was able to make some coherence with that. But I mean, it was fun. Like the time flew by, and that's good.
It's a very fine line, I feel, because you get very authentic answers. You're able to, you know, take kind of those side routes and dive into some other things that maybe you didn't think you were going to get into. But also, like you said, like there are times when there will be stuff that gets left out, or like things that like, man, we just ended, but I wish I would have brought this up. That's where, you know, I have started to do like bullet points, like make sure I cover this, this, and this, but I don't usually share it with a guest or even with Myles. Usually I just kind of let them flow in wherever they can. So
Right.
if there's like a natural transition, it's like, oh, good time to bring this up, or we've already started down this rabbit hole. Let's just take it even deeper and talk about this too. So
I've adjusted that
Yeah,
too.
like,
With
I feel like if you come up,
good.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say.
No, I was gonna say,
Whoops.
what?
we got a room full of hosts here.
I'm walking away from the
Wait,
mic.
guys, I will go. Okay.
All right. I'll just make it real quick. So, what I was just say with when you come up I feel like when you come up with like notes, especially like you tell them ahead of time with the notes, they have time to prepare the answer. So it's not like it's kind of like a rehearsed
Mhm.
answer in a way, where like it's exactly what they want to give, but not as authentic. 'Cause, like when you ask someone they were thrown off, it's more of a real answer versus like, oh, I'm gonna prepare this speech for this question, even though it may come to the perfect answer. And like for some questions, I feel like it's more valid to have, but at the same time, it's kind of like you prepared for it, so you know exactly how you're going to answer versus like being slightly caught off guard and then kind of just answering from the heart.
Yeah, sometimes the nervous stammering kind of brings up other good topics and other things that we really want to dive into.
Yep.
I agree with that 100%. But it's cool though too, because it also makes our podcast different though too, where we all have like our little niche where we have we can all see it with our podcast already, but like even you bringing that up too, where it's like, all right, yours might be a little bit more authentic, where we almost have like guests coming on that are going to have, I wouldn't say scripted, but they've prepared. They're going to think about, okay, what am I going to say? But then you guys are kind of just off the cuff, which is cool. So I respect
I think we have an advantage too with like that authenticity is because we don't have video. I think people kind of forget that they're being recorded and kind of, lose that wall a lot faster. So, when we get done, a lot of times guests are like, oh, well, we're done. That was easy. Like, I feel like the camera puts a little bit more of a nerve into people. And when we're recording without video, it's just like we're talking on the phone. We're just buddies chatting it up and like talking about things we like.
Mm.
Yeah, it's much easier when you're looking at darkness in a name.
Yeah, darkness. What's at the beginning of the Lego Batman movie where it's like, oh, all good movies start with blackness. But yeah, there's something. It's kind of hard because it's always been drilled into me. Like, for those that may know anything about architecture or studying architecture, part of your thing is that when you're done with like a design project, you have these things called crits, which is you put up all your work and then you have like 15 minutes to basically tell your whole story of like what your design is, and then they spend half an hour criticizing it. So I'm so used to like all that, so intense of like, okay, I have to make sure I say everything that like relates to my project and make sure, so then they're not like, oh, you didn't say this, you didn't say this. And that's why sometimes, like, if I have more conversational topics, I'll do kind of what you guys do, where I'll give myself more of an outline, and then just so I remember to hit points, but I won't necessarily share it with someone else. But then if it's, oh, I actually want to talk with someone about this, I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that I have this, so later people aren't criticizing.
Yeah.
I'm like, you missed such and such.
See, this has been like my life though. But if you go back to like college and like group projects, I was always the guy that was like, yeah, whatever, I'll talk. Like, oh, do you want to like take notes? Like, no, just put the PowerPoint up there and I'll talk about something. So I've always been like very off the cuff and like been able to dive into other conversations. So this is really just like home base for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anybody ever drink in college before a speech?
No.
I did it every
comment.
time.
I think one of us might have.
8 a.m. class, I would do it at 6 a.m. Wake up early just to get that liquid confidence.
Oh man.
Majority of the time, I wouldn't have slept in like 5 days. So I'd just be like, stay awake, stay alert. Like, I remember one time I hadn't slept. I think it was probably like 4 days in a row. I probably had 2 hours sleep, where I was like sleeping underneath the library, like 24-hour library computer. And me and my friend would rotate out for like half an hour breaks. And then I remember one time I was giving a crit, and then I like started hallucinating that there were flies. So as I was talking, I was like, this building, oh God, there's something there. Oh, this building is, I'm like, I don't want that stress in my life.
Man, I was never that stressed in college. I did. Me and my buddies used to go get pizza at a Peter Piper pizza place near one of the campuses when I was in junior college, and we had a geology test, and I already pretty much gave up on myself in geology. Rocks are just so exciting, which ironically they're exciting now, but back then I was like, whatever. And we all decided to get a pitcher because it's noon and we're 21. So I think I got like a B plus after that test. I was like, wow, this is the best I've ever done. And I was just like, way too much confidence.
This
but
might be a new thing.
it could have been, but I'm glad I didn't because I might have just been completely lucky. But yeah, that's the only time
I got through college, bro.
Just I can't think of.
If it works once, it'll work again.
Yeah, I should have. Maybe I could have come out with an actual like engineering degree instead of public. What did I get? Public management. I don't know. I just got a degree just because that's what the military wants. It's like, here is a degree, make me officer, and then that's all. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say that you kind of get like a, what do you call it? Like not shortcut, but you get like a higher rank.
Fast track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fast track. That's it.
For some reason, we still live in the archaic days where only an educated person can be an officer, which is bogus because there's a lot of enlisted folks that have master's degrees. I have one specialist that has a PhD, and that kid is super smart, but for some reason, yeah, still got a degree equals commission for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Little tidbit there. So who's got the next question? Because I have something I have two things I wanted to ask before this wraps up.
Before you forget about it.
Well, I have it written down on my digital notes and my written. So, but I don't know if we want to go there yet or if.
Let's go there.
Let's go there. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
why not?
So you know me, I like to go dark for a little bit. We'll start with Brett because you guys are the longest running. Was there ever a moment when you guys thought, okay, maybe this isn't the right thing for us to do? We're just gonna not so much quit, but did you ever have like a moment of doubt, whether it was like a couple seconds or like, hey, is this really something you want to pursue?
Well, for me, it was like the first like 2 months because I was still like half on board with it. I'm like, this isn't gonna last because like it was just the way that the whole situation like set up. Like if you've heard the story of how we started, Brett DM'd me, and I was just like, I guess, because I had no reason to say no. And then I was still kind of like, this probably isn't gonna take off. No one's gonna like it. And then it just like I said, like the first like month and a half, it was just kind of like, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. But then once it started kicking off, I didn't really have any doubts since.
The only thing that I really made sure of going into it was that, you know, whether it's super successful or whether we get 5 downloads all year, is that, you know, it's something that I enjoy doing. And I really wanted to commit to that year and see what happened with it. So throughout this year, yeah, there's been times where it's been, you know, inconvenient to record at 9:30 at night, or it's been hard to come up with an episode or the next topic or what have you. But there was never really a time where I thought, yeah, you know, maybe it's time that we take a break, or there was never really that thought, because I've said it in several episodes, like, yes, I do it for Dodgeball people, but I also do it for myself and my family. They probably enjoy that I get a lot of my talking out somewhere else instead of just to them.
Nice.
So it's really something I enjoy doing, and picking something like dodgeball and fitness that are two very big passions of mine. You know, I can sit here and talk about these things for hours and hours and hours and not get bored. Even when I have somebody that reaches out to me about, you know, fitness or nutrition, or I always have to warn them up front, be like, all right, do you want to hear the cliff notes, or do you want me to go deep into this? Because I will not get bored talking about this. No matter how surface level you think the question is, I will keep going.
Yeah.
So that's really what fueled the year commitment at first. And now that we have picked up steam, it's only made me more motivated.
Exactly. Like, it's nice having Brett there, because like kind of the same thing, like when we, especially fitness, where you have to kind of dumb things down for people. it's nice not having to dumb things down. I mean, I still catch myself dumbing things down, especially after the last episode. I really like, oh my god, I have to go back to college in order to understand what he's talking about. But like it was like it's nice having someone to talk to, especially like if they know what they're talking about, getting really into it, and then find someone that actually enjoyed it versus like someone that wants to know a question but doesn't really want to know, like they want to find the easy way to do it versus like all the science versus knowing exactly what to do with it.
Yeah, it's very hard for me to hold back. Like if my girlfriend will ask me a question, I'll give her like the first 2 sentences and she'll be like, all right, I'm done. And it like physically hurts me to not keep going. Like I want to tell you so much more. I want to tell you why. And she's like, nope, I'm done. All right, bye. Like,
oh my god, it's funny.
What about you, Jenny? Have you had that moment yet?
It's hard because part of my struggles like with doing my podcast is that so I kind of doing it by myself, but also because it's like a women's led one, and then a lot of it's about women's dodgeball. So at first it was like, oh, I really want to do this and try and help promote it, but there's always that thought of like, oh, well, what are people going to be like, well, this is the women's podcast, like we're not going to listen to it, because obviously whilst I've been playing, I've had stuff where it's like people talk about co-ed or they talk about women's and they're kind of like, well, it's the women's division, nobody cares about it, sort of thing. So it was when I started doing the podcast and like getting it together, I was kind of having like, oh, I don't know if people will listen to it. That's something I'm worried about. And then in the end, I kind of gave myself a pep talk and I'm like, you're doing this to like help women's. If people don't listen to it, like screw them, they're missing out. And kind of being like, well, I'm going to release this, I'm going to make them listen to it. So there has been like some moments where it'll be like, oh, I've done like 5 episodes and then I'll kind of have like a lull moment of being like, okay, I just have to remind myself like why I'm doing this, and then like push forward in that sense. So it's like, it's different challenges. I have the motivation to do it, and I have so many ideas of things that I want to talk about that's not just like interviewing or that kind of thing, but it's also, it's hard finding like the right people to talk to about it. And that's something where I'll kind of sit on an episode because I'm scared to reach out to somebody. And then that's been something where I'm like, okay, you just need to get better. You need to get better at just being like, hey, you are coming on my podcast to talk about this.
Never be scared, Jenny. You never know who's going to say yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Just slide in them DMs, and you can regret it later once you hit send. But once you hit send, you're fine.
Yeah, and that's something that after, like at first, because obviously there's a lot of people that I really admire and I look up to, and I'm like, oh, I'm trying my hardest not to fangirl really hard, and then try and be more serious about it, and then it's like seeing the response like, would you be interested in doing this? And they're like, oh yeah, I've been interested, like I've listened to your podcast, like I find it really exciting. And then actually recording it, like Brenda Kramer, I think we were talking for like 4.5 hours. Ooh. And like that wasn't the whole podcast, that was just like us talking afterwards. And then afterwards I was like, oh, this makes me feel really good, like talking to people and learning more and getting more experiences. And then it just kind of drives you to do the next ones, which is why something that, even though I'm taking a break for like the end of the season and the holidays and whatnot, is that even though I'm taking a break from releasing episodes, I'm gonna do like a backlog of recording, so I have like some lined up, so when I come back, then I can just continually do it. And then if I want to take a break, then I can have like a couple of weeks off of just being like, okay, I can chill for a little bit and nice. Have these backup ones that will play. But yeah, that's kind of been, it's just been daunting because I feel like there's a different kind of pressure on me, if that makes sense.
Jenny, I think you picked one of the smaller groups to first get a hold of, but I think you picked a group that will latch on a lot harder, and you won't have as many casual listeners. You're going to have people that are all in, and you have a lot of growth potential within the sport. I mean, once it gets to be more of a 50-50 type sport, you're still going to have those people that are like gripped onto you and are going to do nothing but promote you. So once women's dodgeball does start to pick up a little bit more steam, not that it hasn't, because it has, but you are going to have so many people that are advocating for you specifically. They'll be like, oh yeah, there's these other cool dodgeball podcasts, but this is ours. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And thank you for saying that.
Of course.
I'm like, but that's why it's something that, like, I do want to make sure that on some of the topics that are released, it's not just about women's, because I'm trying to get more people into it. Like, I think Andrew Ketchum actually has messaged me a couple times, and he's like, oh, I love listening to your podcasts. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that men are listening to like the women's one as well as some of the other topics. So that's why I'm getting Alfred into, because I know that he wants to release more about like sports medicine. So it's kind of like trying to get different topics there, get different audiences, and then people will be like, okay, there's intriguing conversations kind of going on here. But that's what I kind of hope for, is that when dodgeball kind of blows up a bit more, and especially the women's scene, then it's like you kind of do have more of like a go-to of like, okay, this is, because you see that with a lot of women's sports in general, where they're like, oh, this is the podcast that you listen to for like women's coverage, and that's one of the things like with soccer and football and that sort of thing.
Yeah, you've established that authority in the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I will say, like, I remember when you first started releasing episodes, I was like, okay, I'm gonna support Jenny. Like, she's my friend. I'm gonna listen to her podcast. Like, I didn't really have put that much thought into like listening to it. And then as you were releasing more and more episodes, like, it made me realize like how little I know about the women's like division, like dodgeball as a whole. And I was like, like, I didn't even realize it till just now when you started mentioning it. And I was like, I actually learned quite a bit about women's dodgeball, and like not only the people that you've had on as guests, like I know a handful of them, but also just like at the women's as a whole. Because like coming from the north, we're very deprived of women as a whole. So like when it comes to like meeting women, like all my women, like, when it comes to women,
such a statement.
It's so sad. It's so sad. But
Tinder's dry up there, bro.
yeah, it's rough.
It's cold in winter. Nobody comes here.
That's the soundbite of the year right there.
Yeah, it is.
Right? Oh man, but like all my experience when it comes to like women's dodgeball comes from other regions. So like whenever I travel, like when I played in the East briefly, when I went out the West Coast for a tournament, so like all those, or even nationals, like all that comes from like different regions. So it's very like limited scope and what type of exposure I get. So like I feel like for people, or at least guys, like either from the north or like similar situations where there aren't a lot of women's dodgeball teams or just women dodgeball in general, you learn different perspectives, and it kind of just opens your eyes to the other side of the sport.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say too, this is just my opinion, but me and Jenny kind of talked about it before. But I think especially how the world's going too, like how we're getting more progressive and things like that. I think the way to make dodgeball, because we've always been like there, but like you got like darts on at 1 a.m. and it's like, why is dodgeball not on ESPN? Even if it's like 3 a.m. in the morning, you know what I mean? You got darts on, you got like
the cornhole. That was the one I saw.
Yeah,
where
you
I was
got
like,
cornhole
what?
on now.
Yep.
But I think the way we really push it is co-ed. I truly believe co-ed would be the way. If we really promoted it more, people would be like, wow, like this is a sport where men and women play, and they all have either specific roles, or like the women are better than the men on this team, or the men are better than the women on this team. It just depends. Or like that woman's like, okay, she's like the catcher on the team, like she's a beast, or she's got a cannon, she's like one of the corners or whatever. But I think if we really push that, I think dodgeball would become a bigger sport quicker. But then I think, Jenny, you're kind of underselling yourself a little bit too, where it's like you are, by you doing this, you have this podcast that has a voice for the women of dodgeball. Like it's a huge thing. And not to make you feel trapped, but you got to do it now because you have this voice, and it's awesome. And down the line, like you're going to be the pioneer of women's dodgeball in a way of you playing, but of you also having that voice though too. So it's really cool to see. And it's awesome that you took this big, like, I guess like not, I won't even say risk, but like this chance of just being like, hey, I just want to promote. I want to be the voice of women's dodgeball, and it's cool. Like you can already see it where not only women are messaging you, but men too, and they're like, hey, we're so supportive of you and things like that. So I think it's very admirable of you, and keep doing it. I think you're crushing it.
I want to say you're trapped, so there is no turning back now.
Yeah,
That's why.
That's a nicer
why
way to say it.
Drew talking, by the way.
What, Drew? Have you had a? I mean, I know you're new and you're kind of overcoming just moving and being mobile, but have you had that moment of doubt at all?
I think the only thing that's frustrating me right now is just the technology part of it. Like I'm so dumb when it comes to that stuff. I don't even know how to do TikTok. So, but doing like actually coming out with stuff, like I love doing it. I think my biggest thing is just putting out more material now. But I think everybody, when they first start, like it's kind of like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it. But I'm kind of like that some days, but then other days, like I just want to put out like 3 episodes. But it's also just for me too, like I'm on like a crossroads though too. So sports was my whole life. Now I'm getting to a point where I'm like, especially with COVID going on, I'm like, I need new hobbies. I need something to like really like make me interested in certain things. So like this podcast has been awesome. I love listening to your guys' podcast too, but just getting to know the people that I played against for so long, just getting to know them more in depth, how they started, what they do on their free time, and just to get them know them more as friends. Like it's been such a fun time that my biggest thing is it's not doubt anymore. Like really, it was never really doubt, but now it's like I just want to do more. So that's my biggest mindset. So
nice. The reason why I asked that of you guys is because there's I'm not going to air them because I know they're still talking about it, but there's a couple people that reached out to me that want to start something, and we'll probably see that in the coming months. But for every one person that actually reached out, I'm sure there's what 4,000 people in the Dodgeball family. Like for people that want to start something, anything, it's not gonna be easy, and it's hard throwing yourself out there, let alone trying to brand yourself and taking that risk. But it's I think all of us can attest that just do it and stick through it, and it gets easier over time, especially once you start getting feedback from people. So I know I said I'll preface this with we'll go dark real quick, but I do that for a reason to nudge anybody else that might be thinking about something that they want to do. They just don't have that little push. So there it is.
I will say, Drew, that bringing up like some weeks you want to put out like 3 episodes, we definitely felt that, and I think it really helped us that we decided on a day, and like this, we are not going to waver from this day. Thursday is our day, and no matter what, we're putting on an episode on that day. Maybe we'll have a short snippet or something to do like a little bonus episode, but no matter what, people know it's Thursday. There's going to be a new Ball Out episode coming out, and just sticking to that commitment really helped us out.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest thing too, is I need to commit more on a certain day though. So that's my biggest thing.
So I actually had a question for you guys. So like if you thought about all your experiences and like trying to go through all the struggles that you had, like how would you actually improve your podcast? Like Brett, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first.
I'm making you go first. It's decided.
I mean, I think I like what we're doing, but I don't know what a lot of listeners like. If you know what I'm saying? Like, I would love to hear like what you guys like that we do and what you guys are just kind of like, that we do. Because I know that, I enjoy talking about the very technical stuff where I don't know if everybody's into that. Some people just want to be like, all right, well, how do we throw harder? Okay, well, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, sometimes we do get into the weeds, like Myles said, because we have the opportunity to talk to somebody that does have a more extensive exercise, nutrition, and, health background. So sometimes we get really excited about those things that people might just be like, okay, are you guys going to move on or what? So so I think that's something that maybe we can work on is, I don't know, people can shoot us a message or something. You know, if sometimes we get too far into the weeds, let us know. And if it's something that, you know, 98% of people want us to just stay surface level and not get too deep into it, that's I don't know. I like what we do. I hope everybody else likes what we do. So that's what I got for you.
Yeah, I'm a bounce off on top of that too. Like I can't think of how we can improve if we don't get feedback. I feel like what all podcasts come down to is feedback from your listeners, and then just going off of that. Like you don't want to take everything they say like 100% and follow them, because then that just ruins your own product. But at the same time, is like if no one's listening to it and it's like a valid concern, like it's hard to not do it. So like for us, like we try to get a lot of people to get feedback. Like I know Steve, like almost every single one of your posts, and I think Jenny, you too, like whenever you guys make posts about your episodes, you get a lot of feedback, a lot of questions about it. For us, we don't really get that many unless it's like a very specific guest pops up. So I think it really comes down to like what people want to hear, what people like to hear, and then like what they really don't want to do. And we don't want to make sure we don't do what they don't want us to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what it comes down to.
Is it bad to call out our listeners for
Oh no, let's say I think they
Like,
expect us
oi,
to do it.
you guys.
Yeah. No, I think that, you know, because sometimes we do get technical, I don't want people to think that they're asking dumb questions, because if you have that question, somebody else probably has that question. And I hope people don't feel like it's like, oh, well, they're going to make fun of me in the comments if I ask, you know, what is a carb or something along those lines. So all of our listeners or people that are listening to this on other platforms, just ask questions. Yeah. Hi. Just ask the questions and let us know what you like, what you don't like.
That's a cute cat, first of all. Secondly, Jenny,
Thank you.
they just dawned on me. Maybe people are embarrassed to ask a question, just be given the nature of the podcast and being fit and diet and fearing outing themselves as being unhealthy or, you know, I guess ignorant for lack of better words. Maybe that could be why sometimes it's kind of hard to get that. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, we have had a couple of people privately message us the questions, and we haven't had any of it recently, but we have had one or two questions go privately, and we usually give that as an option as well.
So
Yeah.
I'll give you guys an
I was
example of
just
when
gonna
I've held back. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, man.
I was just going to say, like, we always offer that as an option. And I know it's more people that, you know, I feel a closer relationship with that aren't afraid to ask those things. And, you know, I will willingly tell people, like, reach out to me directly if you don't want to be seen on Ballout stuff. And there are times where I take those questions. I'm going to call Kevin Bailey out here, even though he likes to text me these things privately. I'm going to call him out because there's been times where he has texted me and it's spurred an episode. So I never called out his name on the episode, but I'm going to call him out here. So we can leave names out. It's not like we a lot of times when people ask questions for a specific person, we will use their name because we want to highlight our listeners that do reach out with those things. But if you don't want your name attached to it, that's completely fine. But I know that there's more people out there that want that answer as well.
Yeah, it's like that one kid in the class who finally asked a question, but there's like 10 people that were like, "Oh, thank God, Brett asked that question." Yep.
100%.
And I think there's something to be said that, especially because you're doing something that's health and fitness, is, I know Myles kind of touched on it, but it's that kind of thing what not a lot of people are comfortable with admitting as to like where they are, because they're not happy with where they are. So sometimes like they want to know this information, but they're like, I don't want to post anything, I don't want to say anything, I'll just wait and see if something comes out. And that's something that's like hard with like that sort of topic. It's just kind of
I think
getting people to push past it and being like, it's okay to not be in shape. Like, it's okay.
Everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like that's how like the Dodgeball Fit to Win page did so well, because there was a lot of people that felt the same way. So whenever I think whoever the first, I think it was Dom, to be honest. Like when Dom made that first post, he had like a couple months back about like where he's struggling, like his goal is to get better. A lot of people reached out to him. A lot of people reached out or just like posted on the page. And then it kind of went dry for a couple months, and then Dom posted again, and then a lot of people got really hyped up again for fitness with COVID. So like I feel like that page was really good for that type of people where like if they don't feel confident of themselves or whatever their situation is, they know they're not alone because there's a whole bunch of groups of people there. But I think for like me and Brett, like we know what we're doing and we know how to kind of like get out of that situation where some people they have no idea what they're doing and they don't. I think it comes down to a lot of people don't like not knowing, so they'd rather not do anything to get to that.
They don't want to know that they don't know.
Yeah, and I will say that, you know, going through a fitness journey and everything, there is a lot of pitfalls, and I have purposely treated my body like a test subject and have done a lot of things, and there's a lot of things that do fail. So a lot of my story is that I've failed a bunch of times at different things so that you don't have to. And like, I like to put myself in those situations. Like when I talked about like the keto diet, or when I talked about, you know, I trained myself for a bodybuilding show. Like I did those things to show people that there is resources out there, or there are resources, grammar. There are resources out there for you to do your own research, but also a lot of people have done these things. And if you can reach out to them and save yourself a couple of months or even years in your fitness journey, why not? There's no reason to not try to take that advantage if you have it.
That's a good point. Like you can just take some shortcuts that, like, thinking Pathfinder.
Be careful with the word shortcut. Cause
I was like, no, sorry, it's not the right word. You can spare people a lot of pain. There you go. You can avoid some of the hard obstacles or pitfalls. But I was gonna say, Brett, because of our conversation and because I know that you like Jocko Willink, every time I thought about posting a question, and I just gotta get over this. Yeah, I gotta get over this because every time I'd post a question, I'm like, you know what the answer is? Hey, Brett, like, how do I, you know, improve my sleep, or how do I improve my diet discipline, or how do I, you know, get better at going to the gym? Well, Brett through Jocko would say, just go to the gym. So I'm like, I know the answer. Like, this isn't fun anymore. But I'll
sometimes the answer.
Yeah.
Wow, Myles, I about echoed you.
At the same time.
Oh man.
But kind of going back to the original question, Drew, what do you think? Like, how do you think you could improve?
My biggest thing for improvement is I can already see, like, when I'm talking on my podcast, somebody will say something and then I'll say a response and then I'll kind of repeat what I just said. And that annoys me. Like when I listen back on it, I'm like, I just said the same thing twice. So it would cut down on a lot of time if I learned how to not do that. And I probably did it in this too, but it's all good. But two things I do enjoy with my podcast right off the bat I'm seeing is if I have multiple people on, we don't really get in depth on like them personally, but we'll talk about our topics and get in depth in that. But then if I have like just one person on, I love like hearing their story, how they started in dodgeball, what they've done, like their accomplishments. Like I love like really getting questions about them, and it goes again with like me trying to like not be selfish in the game anymore, really learning like the people I've grown to know as friends, to get to know them a little bit more personally. So I enjoy doing that a lot. I just did one with Justin Bosch or Bosch. We still
I do not know how to say his last name.
Dude, I'm weirdo. I still say what's his name? Thanos?
Thanos.
Yeah, I still mess up his name too. So if I ever say your name wrong, it's just me. It's not you. But I love Justin. He knows. But even getting to talk to him more about like how he started and stuff like that, it was so cool. And even with Jenny though too, when I was talking to Jenny, I was like, oh, I didn't know like certain things about you. Like I knew a lot about you, but there were certain things that she said on the podcast that was real cool. So like it just makes you better friends after talking like that. So I really enjoyed that. And then also I could be completely stealing one of your guys' tricks, but if I do, call me out on it, because I'm not that type of guy to take someone else's credit. But one thing I talked to Steve about doing is, and I just started doing it, I think it's for 2 podcasts now, is if we talk highly on someone, I'll actually tag them in like the Dodgeball's family when I post my podcast. So I'm like, this is exactly where we talk about you, but it's obviously going to be good things. So I'm not going to be like, hey, this person stinks. You know what I mean?
Tag them in it.
Everyone go look.
Tag them in that. But I just, the way I think, I'm like, okay, so if I knew there was a certain point in a podcast where someone was talking like specifically about me or my team, I would love to listen in, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then that gains interest. And then it's like, okay, I want to listen to more of these podcasts. So that was something that I was thinking of, and I could have been ripping off of someone. So if I did, I truly apologize. But it was just something I thought of. I was like, hey, this might be a good idea. And Steve even said the same thing. He's like, yeah, that'd be a great idea. But just make sure you're not tagging someone when you're like
Blasting
crapping on them.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, I
But,
thought that was a
it's
good
been-
idea when I saw
Yeah.
that. That was pretty good.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, but again, if you guys came up with that first, hype yourself up, because I don't mean to step on anybody's toes.
I think that's
I-
one thing that we missed is we could definitely do a lot better job of, and this is not Myles' fault at all. This is all on me, is doing better episode breakdowns like in our notes. Because
Yeah, we don't do that at all.
yeah, I don't do that at all.
But I think it's easier, to be fair to you guys, though, it's easier to just throw out content though faster because you're not worried about that stuff. But the only reason why I honestly do it is because Steve kind of gave me like the rundown. He was like, all right, do this, 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 and this. And you might get more engagements doing that. So right off the bat, I didn't even think about doing timestamps. I was like, I'm just going to throw out material and just let people figure it out on themselves. But I'm starting to learn. I'm like, timestamps are like a great thing because a lot of people have short attention spans. So they're like, oh, I just want to listen to this, or I just want to listen to this. So they don't want to listen to the whole podcast just to find like a 5-minute clip or something like that. So I'm appreciative of that too.
If it puts your mind at ease, Drew, and this is how weird I can be sometimes, that was 100% your idea. So October 30th at 5:15 p.m. You wrote, do you think this is a good idea to post on Dodgeball Family? See if the majority is cool with me tagging whoever we talk about in a specific podcast. I think that gets more people interested and listen to a podcast if they know they are talked about, or do you think it's a bad idea? And I'd say go for it unless you're talking crap about them. Oof, I almost bleeped myself. So that was all you, man.
Wait.
So a great idea.
All right. Well, I appreciate it because it's I come up with a good idea once a year. So
I think it makes things more shareable too. Like if somebody's asking about dodgeball or like where they rate in the dodgeball world, be like, oh, check out this snippet of, getting talked about. Because I know that's something when going through the NCDA, family would ask me like, oh, that's like a legit thing. And I'd be like, oh, here's an article that was written about Central Dodgeball that, I had a little paragraph quote or something. It's like, check this out. Like, this is a legit thing. It's not just something I'm doing to fill time.
Yeah. And one thing for me though, too, honestly, is like, if you guys want to do that too, I'm not going to feel like a certain way about it. Like, I'm one of those people that like, I want to help as many people out as possible. So like, if you think it's a good idea, you can do the same exact thing. And I won't feel like, I'll be like, oh, that person's ripping off me. Like, I'm not that type of guy. So if you guys want to do that, do it. I think it's awesome. So, and then that way, if you guys come up with a great idea too, like I'll rip you guys off and then you can't say anything about me too. So it'd be perfect.
Well, that's what I was thinking when we were getting this started. It was like, hey, this group that we have been talking in could be an awesome brainstorming group just to bounce ideas off each other. I mean, usually I just do it to Myles where it'd be like 11:30 at night and I just have this idea and I just shoot him a message really quick. But to have more ears on it would be awesome for everybody.
100%.
Yeah, that's something that when Brett and Myles, it was recently when you had done what Steve had done where it made the group, like make a group page that people could then like, and then they would get notifications every time you post. And then you're like, oh yeah, we realized that Steve was doing that, and that's how you get the notifications out there. And then I think I reached out to, I don't know if it was both of you or just Myles, where I was like, oh my God, I feel so stupid.
Yeah, I think that was both of us.
Yep. Like, then, I'm mad at how long it took me to realize that. Cause I was like, how is she getting all these notifications, like all these like feedback on every single episode? I'm like, it might be like the amount of people he had on his like page or whatever. I'm like, I don't think that's it. Like he literally gets like at least 5 or 6 comments per episode. We get maybe one, and I'm calling out our listeners. Respond most to our stuff, but and I was like, there's no way, like, could like, and then I realized because I remember I think Joey Kramer like months back like talked something about like the Facebook algorithm on how like he's definitely our number one fan, and
for sure.
yeah, and like he will always, if he can, he'll always like try to put some type of feedback on an episode, whether it's like after we release an episode or if we talk about an upcoming episode, and then he'll put up his 2 cents on it. And I remember like month back he talked about the Facebook out there. I'm like, oh, right. Like out of like the 1,000 friends that I personally have, I maybe see only like the same like 10 people on my news feed. So I realized that like most algorithms probably will work against you. So I'm like, I'll just follow Steve's idea, and I think it works. It's working so far, so I think it works out.
My favorite thing about Joey is that he'll text us and apologize that he's like behind on episodes. Like, sorry guys, I'm catching up right now.
And I love it, man.
Are you guys saying don't rather than have like a page, you should have a group instead? That way,
no,
like,
definitely have a page. No, you definitely want to have a page, just like kind of broadcast your stuff, and then do a group, like a Facebook group that's kind of like connected to it. So that way, let's say you drop an episode, instead of people finding out weeks later, because like sometimes the algorithm, you don't get the algorithm until like 3 or 4 days later.
Gotcha.
You get the algorithm right away in your notifications.
Okay, I appreciate that because that's something I had no clue about. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's something that when it came out and you guys did it, I was like, oh, that's so smart. And I was like, okay, season 2. I'm not going to do it right after you guys do it. The start of season 2.
Okay, good. Because I thought I missed it. I'm like, hold up.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I'll just do it in the flow and stuff comes out. And I'll be like, and welcome back. Here's a group. Join this group.
There we go.
Yeah, so, and when I saw Drew had done the tagging of like people that you mentioned through, I was like, oh, that's such a smart idea, because especially like when we had talked about Natalie from the West Coast, and then she went on and was sharing it like, oh my God, they talked about me. Like everyone listen. If you want to listen, just listen from this minute to this minute. Just about me. But yeah, that was something that I liked seeing that, and it's kind of like, okay, well, I'll start doing this, but I'm going to do it a little bit later, so then people don't think we're just doing it straight away.
Copy and paste.
You can do
copy
it now.
and paste. But Steve, how about you? Is there anything you can do?
Oh, tons.
To improve the Dodgeball podcast?
Always. Well, first of all, I have to get something off my chest. So the Facebook group idea goes back to 2015. That was Brett Baxter's idea. I was team Facebook page. He's like, no, Steve, we got to do a group because we'll have a captive audience and they'll get our stuff more. I'm like, why would we torture people like that? Like, no, just do a page. So, yeah, if you're listening, Brett, good call. 5 years later, down the road, it's paying off. But in terms of improvements, I mean, for me, I think I try to have every season build off of something like a theme. So last season, I wanted to see if I can get away with having like 1 or 2 episodes guest hosted, where I just go completely hands off. And this season, I won't say double down on that, but there was a lot more people completely taking over, and I just like, okay, just please be easy on the bad words, like make my life a little bit easier, but run with it. And the result was Justin Bosch doing some of his more into the weeds aspect of Dodgeball, Sergio Leone doing the international scene, and me being able to focus on what I feel I'm best at, and that's just the conversation. With that, I wanted to build on video and stream, and so the improvement for me is just trying to come out of this season or go into next season with something like another layer of the podcast as a brand. Definitely could step up the promotions on the Instagram, on the Facebook pages. After all, I mean, I do want to go into editing clips. So with video, I'll probably do that and try to start targeting people that are, college age that follow the movie. Because for as much criticism as I give the viral videos not pulling in dodgeball players, like, well, what am I doing to be a part of that? So, and I think for me personally, I think the thing I could do the most is probably talk less. One thing I bet if you took like every single conversation I had, I would probably have like a switchboard of like common sayings where it's like, oh God, he's saying this thing again. Oh, he's talking about Tucson again. Oh, here he goes again about being in the military. Like, so just stuff like that. But Yeah, there's a whole laundry list of improvements. But if you guys haven't thought about this, I'm going to do this at the end is a survey. So at the end of every year, I throw out a survey. Just, hey, what would you guys like to listen? What were your favorite episodes? What would you guys like to hear about topic-wise? Typeform is my best friend sometimes because that gives people a chance to either do it anonymously or give you episode ideas that you never thought possible. So that's definitely a big one for feedback. And then going back to your comment, Drew, about the timestamps, that was all Sergio. For some reason, he just took it upon himself to start timestamping because some of these episodes go 2-3 hours. So that helps people, let them know, like, okay, I just want to go straight to the crowdsourced questions because that's where we'll probably get the most engagement. And Hunter Ford suggested doing clips, and I realized, Brett, your freaking 15-second spiel about mayonnaise, I think.
With Felix.
Yeah, with Felix. That's one of the highest hitting like little segments. So for me, it all just comes to time. There's so much I want to do, so little time, but being able to just take, okay, that whole little spiel offline where we're talking about aliens, like that could be a nice little, here you guys go, enjoy it. So yeah, time management and less of my voice and more people guest hosting would be my improvements. Now, back to...
Okay, I got one question for everyone. All right, I got one question. So I think it's more of a question for like Dodgeball hosts to other Dodgeball hosts. Like, what's something that you either have like pulled from another, like one of the other Dodgeball like ideas, or something that you admired that the other Dodgeball podcasts are doing? Did that make sense?
It did.
Okay, because it didn't make sense as I was talking. Like, hold up.
I think just right off the bat with Steve's podcast, like since he kind of like laid the ground floor is like just kind of not being scared, just going out and talking to people that you're not comfortable talking to. Like, to be honest, like just from playing on Team USA, like there's people I've met all over the world, but like for him to just be like, hey, I'm going to interview this person in Singapore or Australia or New Zealand, it's like you're really putting yourself out there and taking the chance to like get this person on and to talk to them. Like, it is one of those things where it's like I get nervous talking to like some of my good friends because I know I'm being recorded. So like I get a little nervous doing that. But to go out of your comfort zone and just talking to random people, and I talk about it all the time on my podcast where I'm like, I'm starting with my close friends because I'm comfortable talking to you, but I'm eventually going to branch out. So I think that's very commendable, and that's something that I admire.
Okay, we'll go Jenny.
Don't forget, she still has to answer the what's she going to do to improve question.
Oh,
you can't escape that. So double question.
Oh, wait, I have to answer my own.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the improve one, I think it's definitely like making sure I get myself out there more, because there's some stuff that I want to talk with people about specific things. So sometimes I won't get everyone's feedback on like, hey, if you want to ask from this person, like, what questions do you want to ask this person? Because I'm like, oh, I don't want it to be because I love talking about Dodgeball and talking in general, where like my podcast episodes are like 3 hours long, because I feel like they'll end up being that long if I'm like, everyone ask questions. And I think definitely something that I can probably improve on is, getting some more information out there, like having more people tag people in those kinds of responses, because there's sometimes where I'm like hesitant to do it, or if I'm late at, because I'll be all up for recording a podcast and then I'll kind of kick myself in the butt being like, oh, I have to edit the podcast now.
There's a sobering
I'm like,
part.
why did I record 4 episodes in one day? Like, and then finding the drive to do it. And then so I'll be like, okay, Sunday night, I've got to release this on Monday. I'll like finish editing it, and then I go to post it. And I'm like, yeah, I can't be bothered to go through and do timestamps. So it's like, okay, finding the energy to be like, as soon as I podcast, I need to get better at like editing straight away and then prepping everything. So then if there's anything I did want to change about it, I have more time to go back to about it. Because the editing's something that I don't enjoy as much. I'm like, I don't mind creating it and finding that sort of thing, but that's part of my improvement. And then what was your question, Myles?
So what I might try to refine it so it's better worded. So it was as Dodgeball hosts, what is something that you admire about the other Dodgeball hosts? Like what they do, something you like that they do, something you've taken from them before?
Yeah, I think I've kind of taken a bit of everyone's. I'm not gonna be ashamed of it. Like there's stuff where obviously Steve's been around since the Stone Age. So
Thanks.
you gotta take some Love you, Steve.
It's the gray hair in the video, isn't it?
No. But yeah, it's kind of stuff like where I've kind of taken what you've done well. So things of the interview, and when you're interviewing someone and be like, okay, well, what I'm going to do is kind of similar but change it around a bit. And then something that is kind of inspired me, I already said about when Brett and Myles, when you guys had kind of come out with this and you look at Dodgeball in more of a specific sense and you're talking about fitness, I realized there was sometimes where you had like Brenda Kramer or Lisa Mora on, and there was stuff where you had said, oh, I can't really relate to that because obviously that was like a woman training. Mm-hmm. So then I thought, oh, well, like part of the reason I had Brenda Kramer on was like to talk about is there women specific training that then we could talk about. And so if I had more women listening to my podcast that wanted to see that more specific training, then they could get it that sense. So it was kind of, it sounds bad saying like taking bits of other people, but finding stuff that's interesting and then being like, oh, well, I do have where women have a totally different experience compared to what men have. So it's nice to also explore it in a different platform that you guys might not think to go back to. So I hope that's okay. I hope no one was...
It's definitely okay.
No,
okay.
It's good.
All right, we'll go Steve. Steve, you're up next.
Great. So when we first started, there was actually 2 podcasts already in existence in 2015. It was the Golden State syndicated podcast with Vince Marchbanks.
Yeah, I used to listen to that.
Dave Benedetto and oh my God, Mark Acom. Whew, sorry, Mark. So, and there was also the Book of Dodgeball with David Tates. And so what I liked about both of those was Golden State was they didn't care. They were in a car. They didn't worry about a studio. They didn't worry about being polished. They just hit record, sat in a car, and they just let anything fly for a couple hours, and people loved it. So when me and Brett were looking at it, we're like, okay, we can kind of do something like that. We have the fortune of having a studio, so let's do something similar. Let's make it smaller. Let's be easy on the bad words because, you know, I want my mom to be able to listen to this, and I want people to share it comfortably. So we'll take that aspect. And then when I branched off on my own, what I liked about the Book of Dodgeball with David Tates was he was long form. So a chapter was a player, and he just talked for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. And so I leaned more towards that. And so when I reached out to, I don't know if I reached out to Vince, Mark, and or David, or I forget who I did, but we told him like, hey, you know, we're thinking about starting a podcast out here in Phoenix. Is that cool with you guys? They were all about it. And so I was like, man, if we're ever if I'm in a situation where people are asking me for help, I will 100% give it because it just shows how awesome they are. And same thing with David. When I picked it back up in 2017 to do the long form, he had no problems with me like stepping on his toes. So that just gave me like full reign to just take what I liked and run with it. So Jenny, like what you do is, I think that's what people do. Like you have an idea, borrow from what you feel has worked, and just run with it. Fast forward to now, what I admire about you guys, Ballout, is the hustle. So you guys are just killing it. Like you're constantly in the feeds. You are so passionate about what you're doing. I know I asked about that. Hey, did you ever have a moment where you're thinking about quitting? I don't get that impression at all. It's for this old man. It's exciting to see that someone's going to take and Dodgeball and produce content and run with it as far as they can. When you guys had that episode with Justin Andrews from Mind Pump, it dawned on me like, holy crap, these guys are actually like going outside the Dodgeball incestuous pool and trying to reach a new audience. And that's I don't know if you guys understand how big that is. When we talk about
I'm still surprised about how Brett conned his way.
Let me tell you, the amount of private message fanboying I did was unreal.
to make that happen.
But I love you so much. Please come on my podcast. I'll stop messaging you if you come on.
But earlier we talked about like TikTok and, how do we get viral views to equal play, like stuff like that, just nonstop getting into other people's spheres of influence and maybe venturing outside our own. So that was awesome. That's something I would like to do. I have no idea how I could pitch, hey, you want to be on my podcast for like 3 hours and talk about dodgeball? But it's you guys kind of lit that path up. So that's huge. Drew, what I admire about you is you just have fun, man. Like you can tell you guys are best buds and you just drinking beers and talking your passions. I liked how you kind of had like the UFC/football picks. It made me feel like I actually could understand sports just for a little bit. Like, oh yeah, no, they said that this team's gonna win, and so I'll pick them. I hate that you diss my Cowboys though. There's a couple times you guys supported them, but no, I like that because it's the podcast should be fun. It just, you can tell there's a lot of passion there. And with Jenny, I like your methodology. You're very, like you said, you're very organized. You're very to the point. You can tell a lot of thought and planning goes into it. So if I can blend all those three into next season, man, I'll be set. Like I know what my marching orders are going to kind of look like. So that's what I would pick from the previous two and from the current three. So hopefully that answers your question.
It definitely answered my question. All right, Brett, you're up.
You can already tell you sound more professional than all of us. Like, I think I took this.
Well, Steve, I'm gonna kind of jump on what you did because there's things that I admire about all of the podcasts. So, like Drew, I wish that Ballout I wish we would involve more of just like a what's on your mind today type of mentality. And I wish like there's been times where I've gone into episodes and I'll throw a quick blurb in about like something that piqued my interest yesterday or something. But there's been a lot of times that I've held back on like talking about like the kids with Elf on a Shelf. And like, I really want to talk about it, but I'm like, is this what people want to hear when they come to a Dodgeball Fitness podcast? Or so I really admire that. And I would like to incorporate more of that into it. Jenny, I think you do an awesome job of branding all of your social media platforms. I think that's going to be one of our big goals for our social media is that, we have that consistent color scheme, logos. Like when new episode drops, it's the same post, but different information. And I think that's something that we definitely need to work on. And what's the quote? Good artists borrow, great artists steal. So sorry, we're gonna steal it, but
that's fine. Just commission.
And Steve, your commitment to dodgeball and podcasting is something that I'm hoping that we continue on with our podcast as well. Is that you bring such a round, almost like a center of dodgeball to what you're doing through both the Dodgeball podcast and Ballast Day. And I really want to implement into that into what we're doing as well, is that, we are reaching in different areas and different pools, but I want to bring kind of that full dodgeball feel to everything we're doing. And whether it's, talking to somebody like Justin, or whether it's we're setting up a table at a tournament, like I want there to be ball out in everything dodgeball. So I think that with where we're at now with all of these podcasts, I don't see why all of our podcasts can't double, triple, quadruple as the sport comes back next year, and have these presences within either just teams or communities that bring more eyes to dodgeball.
Nice. Yeah, I don't disagree. There's a lot of going back to that 4,000 pool of dodgeball players. There's a lot of creative minds out there that if we just help each other out, which we've been doing Who knows where we can go. You guys probably had no idea the feelings I got when I saw the Mind Pump episode. I was like that Jeff Goldblum meme, like, hey, they did it. Those crazy sons of bees, they did it. Like, that's such a huge thing. So, I mean, to be able to, and with your comment about Jenny and her branding, like that we need to see more stuff like that if we're going to pull ourselves into the dodgeball that we want. Because obviously at this point, Jeff Bezos, some $1 million investor, is probably not going to just find us on accident. We have to get in front of them. So,
and when you said about the branding thing and exploring that, like, that's something that I'm used to doing that. So if you need help, I'll more than happily help with like helping you with ideas, like consulting, or like if you need some kind of artwork, I'm more than happy to do that.
The sad part is I have zero excuse for that because I went to school for public relations and worked as a graphic designer for like 4 years before my current job. So like I have zero excuse. It's just like sitting down, doing it and taking the time to work it all out. But it's something that, 2021 goals right there.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about you, Myles?
All right, so I've been trying to think of it, but every time you guys would answer, I had to change my answer. So for Steve, I think the what I admire about your podcast would be growth and influence. Like the fact that we've been this is year 4, year 5 for you for your podcast, right?
5, yeah.
I lost count.
Yeah.
5. Okay, so
4. I'm sorry.
Span of 5 years, like you said, you had 200 episodes. 5.
I don't know. I'm like, we're about to start season 5. I'm sorry.
Okay,
4 years. My bad.
Okay. So yeah, so year 4 or 5, whatever the number lies, is one of those two numbers. The fact that you have guest hosts, besides me and Brett, we're partners. It's not the same. You have people that were willingly joining your team in order to make your podcast better. You have outreach probably more than all of our podcast probably combined, because you've been around so long. You have a lot of influence in the community, not only with just Ball Estate, but with your podcast as well. There's a lot of people that listen to your podcast on a weekly basis. You have subscribers, some that I think Ballout is starting to get. I mean, we could definitely get a lot more, but you have people that are waiting for your next episode, and then just looking forward to the next one, always giving you feedback, always kind of coming up with things for you, whether they give you feedback, whether they tell you, hey, this is what we want, this is what we don't want. There's people that are actively participating, either proactively or just passively.
That's me.
So I really admire that.
I'm one of those that's every single time you guys release an episode, I'm like, half an hour later, I'm like, are they listening?
That's awesome.
Yep. That was also me as well. For Matt, I would say, or not Matt.
Drew!
I don't know why I called him. I meant Drew.
You're half right.
I don't know why I did that. My bad. My bad. I was thinking, I'm like, that's not right. That's very wrong. No, so for Drew, for your podcast, I really admire that you bring your close buds in, that you have a lot of fun with it. The fact that you don't restrict yourself. I gotta make sure I word myself. It's just sound awful more than I would mean it. But it's kind of you gave yourself free reign to do whatever you want. Not you're restricted, because like you said, you're still brand new to this, so you're still kind of taking steps into it, kind of how we were. When we first started with Ballout, we were kind of figuring out how we were go, but we still have a very constricted mindset of how we were going to go about it. For you don't have that. You just know what you're going to talk about, and you just kind of go for it. So you don't, I guess you're not really afraid of any potential blowback. You're not afraid of things that you say, aside from saying things over that go over a line, but I guess you have no fear, and I very admire that you just kind of go for what you want, and whatever topic you want, you just go for it. If people like it, they like it. If they don't like it, they kind of that sucks for you. You kind of have that mentality without actually having that mentality, which is good. For Jenny, I would say, oh no, come back. The answer was there. It was the fact that I guess it kind of goes with you and Steve. You guys are so organized, and I think it's the way you present your organization that it makes it actually very intriguing to listen to. I remember the first time I listened to your episode, I'm like, I know this is Jenny, but it doesn't seem like Jenny, because it's almost sounds in a professional sense. I know it sounds kind of you could take that as a negative, but it's drawn in a way where if you met Jenny like in person, like you see like kind of like the goofy, silly side, the very energetic side. But like when you listen on the podcast, it's a very different side of Jenny, and it's like a professional, like kind of like almost like you're in like almost like a newsroom where like it's very like thought out procedure. Like you get that kind of vibe going forward. So it's a very different aspect of podcasting compared to like what you see from the other podcasts here. So it's very different in terms of words come to
what we're used to.
yeah, thank you. That's why I need Brett, because he fills in the gaps I cannot figure out. But yes. So yeah, that's my answer for the thing. Did Jenny just die?
Just fall.
Yeah.
Okay. Just solid carpet.
Does she have a life alert?
Yeah, so that would be my answer for that question.
Nice. That was a good question, man.
I feel like my answers weren't good enough now.
I think I mean we're past the 2-hour mark.
Oh wow.
I think I do like the idea of leaving it on a high note. I mean, that's feedback I'm gonna take away from me for a while. So I appreciate that, guys, and I hope whoever's listening appreciates this episode as well, and hopefully squashes any idea or belief that we're competing against each other. I don't know if that's ever been a thing. I just know that there should be no doubts on that. I think I go back to what Brett said about the rising tide elevates all ships. I feel like if we have that approach as a dodgeball community, we'll take the sport to where we want it to go. But you did touch on one thing that I feel like we could potentially end the episode with, when that'd be shout outs. Whether it's people that had a direct influence with the podcast or just in general, if there's anybody you guys wanted to say thank you for. Yeah, we did miss Thanksgiving, but this is ideally Christmas Day. So, I mean, if there's unless there's any other questions you guys have, that would be my final question for all of you guys is, who would you shout out right now?
Yeah, I'm good with shout outs.
You just volunteered first then.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there was a lot of podcasts out there that I did listen to, like the Mind Pump, listen to like Joe Rogan, and those were like people that got me actually involved in podcasting by just listening. And so that was something that I tried to make very clear when I did the episode with Justin, and I tried to make it very clear that, you know, without Mind Pump, you know, I probably wouldn't be into podcasting. I also actually owe a huge shout out to Jake Lesky, which, you know, kills me to do it, but I love the kid, but God, he's something else sometimes. I don't know how many of you actually know the story, but before I became a Gamecock, what was it, like 3 years ago now?
Yeah, I think it's 3 years.
Yeah, I almost walked away from dodgeball, and I was part of a team and part of forming a team that the team then turned around and was like, kind of outed me and was like, yeah, maybe we don't want you, after I'd put in a lot of work to build the team. And I was like kind of taken aback by it, but like, these were people that, you know, I went to school with, and these are people that, you know, were my friends, and I understand like the winning mentality and all that, but, you know, if that's how dodgeball is going to turn out, you know, maybe it's a good time to just walk away. And I actually ended up, I was in Indy at the time, and he kind of pulled me back into dodgeball. So I owe a big thank you to him, because without him, I wouldn't be here at Ballout right now.
Man, Jake, if you're listening, thanks, buddy. Any, meeny, miny, Drew, you next.
Shoutouts is just to the whole dodgeball community. Without being a part of the community, I don't think any of this would be possible. I don't have the sense of like competing with anybody. I would love to build everybody up, and I love listening to all your podcasts and like the different, like almost like, it's not really different genres, but like different topics are talked within dodgeball. So it's so interesting to hear. And podcast is such a trend right now, where like exactly what Myles was saying too, like music takes you so far now, but like now, like my long road trips, I'm like, oh, podcast. So, just the dodgeball community, there's so many interesting characters and awesome people, and just getting to know them more. I just love everybody. I'm one of those people that I'm not a hater. I love seeing people succeed, even if it's people that like I don't really talk to in the dodgeball community. But if I see someone like doing their thing and getting big off of it, like I love it. I'm such a supporter. I think there's too much hate in this world right now, so I'm one of those people. I'm not a hippie, but I love everybody. So,
one love, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's my whole mindset. It's like I just love everybody. So shout outs to the dodgeball community, to my friends and family, and that's about it.
Nice. All right, who's next? Jenny, let's hear what Myles has to say.
Oh, I have to go. Okay, so like if I kind of say about, so I'll do like two kinds of shout outs. So shout outs obviously to Steve, Brett, and Myles, because when I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna make this thing, I was like, how do you do your podcast? How do you start it? Can you give me all of the information? And that meant a lot. And like I'd said it on my podcast, I'd said it on like everyone's podcast, but like I'm a hardcore Dodgeball podcast listener. So it's like as soon as those episodes come out, then I listen to it, and it's something that's really exciting. It's inspirational for me, like over the years, being able to listen to this content being produced. And it is like your guys' work is what made me want to do this and like feel like, okay, I can make another platform. It's given me the drive to actually create something and not just, oh yeah, I'm just gonna sit on it for 7 years, and then when I'm done playing, I'm like, oh no, I missed my chance. So thank you guys. And then when I first announced, I actually wanted to give like a little shout out to Dom Borgia, because he reached out to me and he was kind of like, hey, I've done stuff for Steve, and like I'm super excited about what you're creating. Like, this is how you make clips. If you need me to do this for you, I can do this for you. If you need me to do this. And just having someone that once I'd announce, approach me and say like, I'm really excited about you doing this. Like, here's if you need me to do it. That meant a lot. And it's nice kind of having that support and knowing that other people will be there for you and they're interested in what you're doing. So thanks, Dom. And then on more of like a personal note, I want to give a shout out to a lot of my Royale girls, because they've dealt with a lot of my rants talking about women's dodgeball and how I want more coverage. And like they'd bring a topic where they said, oh, someone posted on #dodgeball family, like, how do you feel about this? And then I'll just talk where it's just me talking and sending like 20 messages one after the other. So it's nice having them and kind of bouncing off of them when I was kind of doing the branding, kind of saying like, what do you think? That sort of thing. And especially my gal pal, Amanda Decker, because she's someone that I've been like, do you think people will be interested in if I talk about this? And she's like, yeah, 100%. And she'll just give like one word answers or a short sentence. I'm like, okay, I've got Amanda's approval. I'm going to go ahead. And that's same with Justin Bosch, who's been co-hosting on Steve's, is that Justin was probably one of my first friends since I moved to America. And he's someone that we've always talked in depth about dodgeball, and having him randomly, like, we'll go back and forth and say, he'll be like, what did you think of my podcast? And I was like, yeah, you did good. You could have done this. You probably shouldn't have done this, but oh well. And then he'll do the same for me. And then two more. Sorry, I've got a list. I actually like wrote out a list when you were like, oh, you got to do this. And I was like, please don't make me go first because I want to write out.
That explains what you're doing.
Who has the music?
Yeah. And then, so another one is generally to all of the women that play dodgeball. They've basically been the reason as to why I've continued doing this, and seeing particularly female players, how they've grown, and particularly in America, how much growth has happened in just my time starting playing in 2016 in the competitive scene. And especially on the East Coast, we have such a close-knit group of women that creating something like this, almost every one of them had reached out and offered their support and said, like, if you need anything, I'll be there for you. And like women on the West Coast that, like I was saying, that at first I was kind of fangirling hard enough that I was like, oh, they're so good. I don't know if they want to talk to me. And then they're all saying that they're really excited and trying to do what they can to support it. So that's something that's really nice. And then my biggest shout out, okay, this is the last one, and then we'll let someone else talk, is Alfred, who is my other half, if people don't know. He's been on the podcast a couple of times, doing some more of the sports medicine side of things. And he's been my biggest support and has also listened to many rants talking about dodgeball and women's dodgeball. And he's kind of the one that drove me to be like, you need to do this. Oh, I think it'd be good on your podcast if like you try and make it more professional and like do a branding, like have a saying that you say and have a certain beginning. And he's been very supportive as the process has gone on. And in those lull moments where I go, oh, I really hope people are listening to this. It's like, I don't know if they are. And he's like, it doesn't matter if other people aren't listening to this episode. Like, you've done it. It's not just for you. It's for other people that are out there. Like, you're not doing this for your own podcast. You're doing this to try and help support women's sport. So whatever you're doing, it's doing something. So thank you, Alfred. And then there you go. Someone else can go.
Myles, you're up.
They left me. So I only got 2 shout outs. First one is gonna be Joey Kramer, #1 fan of our Ballout our podcast. Love you, Brett. Appreciate the support. And the second one will probably be my family, because I don't know that I know they don't listen to the podcast, but they at least support like the company side of our Ballout. So I appreciate that their support for it. They bought some shirts, they bought some hoodies. They keep telling me to really pursue it, even though like at first I was like kind of iffy on it. They're like, something probably you should do. You're probably gonna enjoy it, so keep doing it. Stop being lazy as you usually are, and just go for it. So they always ask me questions. They always keep checking up on see how things are going, make sure that we're still moving forward despite the current situation with COVID. So shout out to family for being supportive, and I appreciate them for that.
Nice.
Last but not least, Steve.
Just myself. I've done this 100% by myself. No help from anybody. I'm actually going to do a separate, like probably 10-minute shout out, just recalling everyone that's helped out. But
like you did on our podcast?
Yes, but longer. And
like
separate.
I just did? What?
I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I'm glad you mentioned Dom. He has been nothing but a continuous, like, perpetual giver of his talents to dodgeball. He supports so much. It's insane. What he doesn't stop helping. It's insane. Insanity is the only word that comes to mind, except he gets a different result every time, and it's usually good. Sergio Leone, I mean, for some reason he just started timestamping, like took it upon himself to do that, and then he just took the international scene and ran with it. He has heard my rants nonstop, 2 o'clock in the morning, Sunday, anytime. So we bounce a lot off each other with that. Justin Bosch for co-hosting. I mean, he more than just coming at me with ideas. He's like, this is what I would like to do, and he just runs with it. So that's been awesome. Lucas stepped up earlier this year. He did a couple of episodes, one with the Crush recap, and then the men's coaching panel. Amanda Decker did a guest host episode. Once she did that, I realized this is something that it's no longer just a concept. I can give this to anybody as long as they don't say a lot of bad words and, try to help me out with the sound. But I'm also glad you mentioned Alfred, because he's reached out to me a few times, giving words of encouragement. I didn't have a dark moment. I just had a moment of slight hesitation just on how one of our episodes went. And not that I needed it, but he reached out to me and encouraged me to keep going. I was like, oh, yeah, dude, you just bought like 3 more seasons out of me just for that reason alone. So that guy's awesome. And I got more. Nick Tantillo, our sound engineer, the guy that took mine and Brett's idea and turned it into something tangible. Brett Baxter, obviously, even though I hate the guy, I don't, but you'll understand that joke. I can keep going, but I mean, the list goes on, but really just it boils down to anyone that's ever just push play. At the minimum, that alone will keep me going for a very long time. So I'll gush in a separate episode, but I do want to thank Austin Deeks for giving me this year's theme, last year's Pizza versus Tacos. I do have a dad joke teed up. Unless you guys have any final thoughts, we can wrap it up with that dad joke and call it a night.
I just want to say I'm really glad this worked out, and thank you guys for fitting it into your schedule. And we took this little idea and made, like a 3-hour episode out of this. So
2.5 hours.
You guys thank you for sticking around and making this happen. It was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, great idea,
Yeah.
man. And
Hours worth, bro.
Dang, Drew.
Yeah.
we can
So
call
like,
this.
thank you for having me and letting me laugh at you. I mean, with you guys.
Let's we need to call this like podcastception. #podcastception.
Yeah. Podcast.
All right, let's hear this dad joke.
Okay.
I'm not ready for it.
I'm on video, so I'm gonna try not to botch it. Okay. So Austin Deeks asks, why can't 2 elephants swim at the same time? Because they only have 1 pair of trunks.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Austin. All of his dad jokes, when I do remember to get them in time, have been solid.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
I do have to say that's one of the better dad jokes.
Yeah.
The penguin one you gave me the other for that North recap. I almost got out of my chair and walked away. I was so bad at that one.
That was
So
good.
they're like so bad that they're so good.
Exactly.
I think it was Justin. He's like, I wanted to answer, but I didn't want to get it wrong, so I just stayed silent.
Yep.
Just like the pressure
Yeah.
that comes on people.
Well, the reason I'm silent is when you look at me and I'm just trying to work out all of the answers.
You're like, I might
I'm
know this
not
one.
smart
Awesome.
enough.
Well, again, guys, I appreciate this. This has been a lot of fun. I hope that people listening get as much enjoyment out of it as I know I got. And we need to make this an annual thing.
For sure.
Let's do
Yes,
it.
definitely.
All right, guys. Well, we'll go ahead and end the panel there. All right, so that was the podcast of the podcasters episode. Brett and Myles, fantastic idea. I can't think of a better way to wrap up the season. Yeah, there might be a couple more episodes that kind of eke out between now and the official start of season 5, at least for me anyway. But to be able to talk to you guys, content creator to content creator, and kind of hash out or talk through some of the challenging points, the high points of this year, and just kind of pick your brains out in the open like that was really awesome. And I cannot tell you how humbled I am with the inspiration I may have had on you guys, or at least being able to assist you in any capacity. And I do offer that to anybody else that wants to guest host and use this platform, or is thinking about doing something of their own. I don't know what advice I can give you, but if there's anything I can help to help create this, help foster the sense of creativity amongst the community, I'm more than willing to do so. So just shoot me a message or send me an email, and I'm down to make more magic with this dodgeball community. It's the only way we're going to get dodgeball to where we want to be. But there's a lot of thanks I have. I'm going to release that in a separate segment just because I want that to be the focal point for anybody that wants to listen to what exactly has gone on this year to make this dodgeball podcast, to make this season successful. I could not do this without a lot of people. So I fear rather that the perception is this has been a one-man show. It really hasn't. Like I said earlier, from those of you that simply just push play, to providing feedback, to sending messages of encouragement or good job or kudos or even criticism, and to those that have taken upon themselves to actually host an episode or even just come on to talk about dodgeball with me for a couple hours. If there's one thing I respect, it's people's time. And so for you to be willing to give me time out of your evening, out of your busy week to talk dodgeball, I only hope that I can repay that in quality episodes that we will listen to for many years to come. But I guess what I'll do is leave it at that. So if you are still with us after this 2.5 hour episode, thank you so much for doing so. Thank you for being with us this entire year. And have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. Be safe, and we'll see you very soon. I can't tell if the neighbors are being loud or if there's somebody walking around my house. I just don't know it yet.
You'll find out soon.
Yeah, if you see if I disappear, then I got murdered.
Oh,
Yeah, the aliens finally came.
You
dude,
are
that's
an
gonna
AZ.
happen at the end of 2020, bro.
Hey, let's finish
We got
strong,
the
man.
Star of Bethlehem. We got the aliens are not are actually real. Like all this crazy stuff's happening.
Are you following that crap? Like the Pentagon legitimately saying we have recovered craft.
Something out of this world.
Yeah. Why are we not losing our over that? Like that's huge.
You-
Like,
You want to hear something wild right now? And I was not even drinking too, so I'm telling you the honest truth. So I'm not. So my thing is like it's fun hearing about like alien conspiracies and stuff like that, but I'm a skeptic. Like if I don't see it, like I don't really believe it. But I swear to you. So we get out of the car. We're in Denver. We get out of our car to our Airbnb house, and it's one of those places where you can just see everything. You almost see like the Milky Way galaxy. That's how
how dark the sky is. Or
yeah,
clear.
like there's no light pollution or anything like that. So we get out, and of all people, Matt's my twin brother Matt's wife Danielle's like, "What is that?"
Oh,
And she like
no.
looks up in the sky and points, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So like we look up, there's legit like 15. It looks like airplanes at first. It's just a little bright dot moving at like a constant rate. But you know, I think everybody here has seen like a shooting star, how like it like shoots and then kind of disappears.
Yeah.
This is like a constant like movement, but it's way too high up to be like a jet or an airplane or whatever. And there's like 15 of them in a row, and they're just going like at the same rate, and then they would just disappear at this certain spot. So I was like, what the heck is that? Like, is it satellites or something? But it was just the creepiest thing because it was like in one line, super straight line, and they all just disappeared at the same spot. So I was like, I have no clue what that is. It's aliens, bro. It's
Cool.
aliens.
I'm not sleeping tonight. Thanks for that.
Yeah, bro. I get Alex Jones on here soon.
Yeah, it's weather balloons, swamp gas reflecting off Venus.